Chapter 333. The Nether Flame Blade Malum, the Hell Song tribe's vice chief, had actually died to a weak awakened soul realm girl. This news was just too explosive. The various Warhounds tribes were all discussing this. "You are insulting my tribe's warriors." The Fang King angrily roared, "How could you kill him? Don't you recognize this storage bag?" Meng Qingguo did not waste words as she took out a storage bag from the Fang King. Then she took out a long black blade from the storage bag. The long blade was tied up in strips of cloth. Because this saber was a top-grade soul-contracting weapon, Meng Qingguo had no way of gaining its approval, so she had no way of using it. "Even if you don't recognize the storage bag, I think you're not unfamiliar with this saber." Nether Flame Blade. Malum really died to her hands. Several Warhounds Plains chiefs were whispering to each other as they all had strange expressions on their faces. No one sympathized with Malum's death, rather most of them revealed looks of disdain. The Fang King was unable to restrain his anger. Malum was his little brother and was the Fang King's most trusted and capable subordinate. If Malum was killed by a strong enemy, it would be a fitting ending for a brave warrior. But Malum had actually died to this weak little girl's hands. This was not just an insult to Malum, it was also an insult to their Hell Song tribe. The purple gold thunder god's drum was suddenly raised. Lightning! The Fang King roared out as he released a bolt of lightning that exploded in the sky. It pierced through the clouds and charged at Meng Qingguo on the city wall. She could still release such a strong attack from this far away. The Fang King's strength was truly terrifying. This shocked the southern Xia soldiers. The refined ruler gave a cold laugh and the golden pen fell out of his sleeve. He drew a circle in the air and the lightning was instantly locked in. With a wave of the golden pen, the energy was sent back, shooting at the Fang King like a beam of light. The Fang King used the golden drum to block it and it was all sucked in. The Fang King softly asked, "You are the Southern Summer refined ruler?" "It is this ruler. The many years of chaos in the Warhounds were all secretly stirred up by you. The reason why Southern Xia can live until today is because of you. It's a pity that I haven't been able to grasp their recent movements. Otherwise, how could I have fallen to such a state? This ruler is clear on the situation of the Warhounds Plains, it is impossible for them to launch this kind of attack. You are not a nameless person, so where did you come from?" The Burning Sun ruler coldly said, "Why are you wasting words with him? Since these Warhounds beasts have come, then we'll let them experience the power of Southern Xia's arrows. Burning Sun ruler, refined ruler, I suggest you surrender." Before the Fang King could say anything, Wang Tianlong slowly walked out. "Could it be that you still naively think that Southern Xia is only facing the Warhounds kingdom?" "Wrong. He was gravely mistaken. You don't know what happened at all, you can't win this battle." The Southern Xia people were already suspicious of the Fang King's origin. This was because the Hell Song tribe was a new tribe that had appeared in the Warhounds Plains in the last 10 years, so they were fundamentally different from the other Warhounds tribes. A tribe that was established in such a short period of time, it was impossible for them to establish a mature and complete army. 100,000 demon wolf cavalry and 20,000 vulture cavalry, where did they come from? There was only one possibility. The Hell Song tribe was just a representative, representing a foreign power. That was why Wang Tianlong was so confident. The Hell Song tribe is a noble of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Wang Tianlong loudly shouted, "The Warhounds Kingdom has already become one of the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdoms and the Warhounds are now under the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence. Do you think you have the ability to fight against a warring kingdom?" Everyone's expressions changed. Eagle Burial Kingdom. Although this country did not have any contact with the Southern Summer country, some people had heard of it before. This was also a kingdom, but it had already developed to the level of a warring kingdom. It had to be known that for a kingdom to become a warring kingdom, it first had to have a stable and rich national power. It also had to have a military strength that surpassed the surrounding areas, showing a tendency to expand to become a warring kingdom. A warring kingdom was also a kingdom, and its strength far surpassed a normal kingdom, even surpassing a normal large kingdom. In the future, it had the potential to become an empire. Didn't the Tianma cult create a heavenly demon warring kingdom in the past? Everyone was clear on how strong the Tianma cult was at its peak. Each branch of the 10 great inheritances had at least several true spirit realm experts. The small southern summer country's national power compared to a warring kingdom did not have any chance of winning. The Warhound's kingdom had already become a warring kingdom. This generation's Fang King was not born on the Warhound's plains, rather he was a king from the spirit beast warring kingdom, not an independent king. It was no wonder the Fang King could lead such a strong army. With the situation on the Warhound's plains, this army couldn't be established even after several decades. This was clearly an army provided by the spirit beast warring kingdom behind the Warhound's kingdom. It was because of this that the Fang King could sweep through everything, causing the front lines of southern Xia to collapse in a single night. Now you understand, you have no chance of winning at all. Wang Tianlong said with a cold smile, not to mention you can't win today, so what if you're lucky enough not to be destroyed? In just a few days, the warring kingdom will send several times the number of soldiers. What use is there in defending? How long can you defend? You traitor! Shut up! A wise man submits to circumstances. The Fang King has ruled the plains and has now become the Fang King. Wang Tianlong was not moved at all. The destruction of the southern summer country is a fact. Only surrendering to the Warhounds can save the 200 million citizens of the southern summer country from the flames of war. Southern Xia will still be Southern Xia, it will just be a subsidiary of the Warhound's kingdom and a small piece of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's territory. Humans can still live their own lives and receive the protection of a strong warring kingdom, so why not? Don't be stubborn, there is no other way other than surrendering. Let Southern Xia become the spirit beast slaves. Let Southern Summer pay tribute to the Warhounds. Impossible. Don't tell me you want Southern Xia to fall into death and destruction. Wang Tianlong loudly shouted, the lives of the millions of innocent citizens in Imperial City are in your hands. If you dare resist the Warhound's cavalry today, the city will be slaughtered on the day the city is broken. You better think this through. The defenders were a bit shaken. The strength of a warring kingdom was too terrifying, the small southern summer country couldn't even fight the Warhounds. Even if the Warhounds agreed, they would only be a large kingdom and a very unstable kingdom. How could they compare to a warring kingdom? Now that the Warhounds' plains had the help of the Eagle Burial Kingdom, the Warhounds' kingdom had been re-established. With the warring kingdom suppressing them, the Warhounds would have fewer internal conflicts. The Warhounds' kingdom had become a vassal state of the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so what qualifications did Southern Xia have to refuse becoming a subsidiary country? The countries of the continent were divided into 3 types. The first was an independent country. This was a country with complete sovereignty, diplomatic rights, and exclusive resources. It was not controlled by any outside powers and did not need to pay tribute. The second was a vassal state. A vassal state was not a kingdom, it could be a marquis state, or a sovereign state. This was a country with a noble title that was sent to various places, allowing them to have their own territory. The current Fang King was clearly a king of the Eagle Burial Kingdom, so he was given the title of King of the Warhounds Kingdom. Although the Marquis had a high degree of autonomy in their territory, the highest commander of the Warhounds army was still the king. Every year they mined the resources from the treasury, they had to pay a certain amount of taxes to the main country. The third was a subsidiary country. Subsidiary countries were different from the first 2. Subsidiary countries were countries that were defeated or faced with a stronger country, so they surrendered. These subsidiary countries did not have any dignity and almost no sovereignty. Not only did they have to pay tribute, they also had to pay tribute and they could not have their own army. Subsidiary countries existed to work hard, growing food, cultivating resources, raising demon beasts, and etc. They were not allowed to keep the treasury and had to take it all out to pay tribute. Once Southern Xia became a subsidiary country of the Warhounds Kingdom, their people and resources would not belong to them. But if they resisted, with Southern Xia's national strength, how could they block the invasion of a large warring kingdom? Scram! A person like you who sells out your ancestors for glory, what qualifications do you have to shout here? Then I want to see how long you can remain arrogant in front of the Warhound's kingdom's overwhelming strength. Wang Tianlong did not plan on keeping them here. Although the Fang king promised to make him the new southern summer king, the three great clans did not have any meaning in existing. Otherwise, with Wang Tianlong's current strength, how could he suppress these fellows? Kill, he had to kill them all. Wang Tianlong was very clear on the Burning Sun ruler's temper. Since they wouldn't give up until they saw the coffin, they could not convince them to surrender, so he would use strength to speak. The Fang king did not want to waste time. This was because the calm martial ruler did not give the Fang king much time. At this time, a deep bugle was blown. The Warhound's army was preparing to attack. The vanguard was made up of giant beasts, leading around 50,000 Warhounds elites. Most of them were carrying tools to climb the walls, so this was the first wave of Warhounds to attack. Those giant beasts that looked like gorillas were over 10 meters tall and each one was covered in incomparably thick armor. The threat that Southern Xia's archers posed to them was very limited and even the arrows of true Soul Realm experts would find it hard to heavily injure them. Dong, dong, dong. The war drums became more and more intense. The speed at which this army charged out was becoming faster and faster. The Burning Sun ruler knit his brows. Will it really work? Relax. Meng Qinggu tightly clenched her fist. Just wait and see. A giant beast suddenly stepped on something and a large amount of energy was released from its foot. It released a large amount of light and heat in a short period of time. That wild energy was released like a tsunami, instantly blowing up the giant beast's leg. That giant shockwave sent several hundred Warhound soldiers flying and quite a few of them were sent flying. The Warhound's vanguard formation fell into chaos. Hung, hung, hung. There were several large explosions. Several more source energy bombs buried underground were detonated. Without any warning, these giant monsters suddenly suffered a violent explosion. Basically, they were all blown to pieces. The power of this explosion was so strong that every time it was released, a black bowl-shaped pit would appear on the ground. Perhaps even a true Soul Realm expert would be heavily injured or even killed by this explosion. Fire! Meng Qinggu gave an order. Several catapults on the wall were launched and several tightly wrapped bombs flew out from the wall, falling in a parabola in the center of the Warhound's army. Hong! Another shining mushroom cloud appeared. Several hundred Warhound soldiers were in the range of the bombs and were immediately killed by this violent explosion. The Warhound's first wave did not even have time to fight before they suffered a heavy setback. Their originally low morale was restored by quite a bit. No matter what happened in the future, they would at least win this battle first. After all, the Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler were not fools. If the situation reached a point where they could not resist, then they would naturally retreat. Bring the bow. Southern Xia's bombs were too strong, causing large losses to the Warhounds. This made the Warhounds experts very unhappy. When Southern Xia threw another source energy bomb, a Warhounds expert pulled his bow and shot an arrow at the bomb. Hong! This bomb exploded in the air. There were quite a few Southern Summer soldiers on the wall that were injured. When the source energy bombs were shattered, the fragments fell in different places like fireworks. Each fragment exploded, causing a certain amount of damage to the Warhounds tribe. What was this thing? The Warhounds were very shocked. Mind's eye. Wang Tianlong used his divine sense to observe the ground in front of him and was surprised to find that there were many high-energy objects buried in the ground in front of Imperial City. It was these things that had blown up the Warhound's giant beasts. Humph! The Fang King had clearly noticed this as he coldly raised the golden drum. Shoot the arrows in front of you. The Warhound's archers immediately pulled their bows and a large wave of arrows fell down. Those source energy bombs that did not explode in time were mostly detonated by the rain of arrows. Like this, the buried mines had lost their effect. It was a pity that there was too little time and Miracle Commerce did not have time to make enough source energy bombs. The Warhound's army did not care about death as they charged forward. They were about to reach the wall and the following battle would be very difficult. Perhaps they would have to fight a hard battle. Chapter 334. The war drums were like thunder, shaking the earth. The Warhound's army charged forward like a black mass, finally beginning their attack. When they entered the range of Southern Xia's archers, a terrifying whistling sound came from the sky. It was like a dark cloud was covering them, instantly blocking the sunlight as countless arrows fell down. Ice, flames, and explosions, these talisman arrows had shocking might, instantly causing the Warhound's army to suffer heavy losses. Release the arrows. Counterattack. A Warhound's chief personally led the charge, let them see the might of the Warhound's kingdom. The Warhound's army charged forward with a strange roar, shooting arrows into the sky. Countless arrows fell onto the city walls, attempting to use the rain of arrows to suppress the resistance of the southern summer defenders. The refined ruler coldly ordered, activate the talisman array. The Shangguan family stood in a circle, each person holding a large flag covered in talismans. They slammed it into the city walls and the energy from the talismans began to interweave, forming a protective barrier around the city walls. The Warhound's arrows were all bounced off the protective barrier. The Warhounds attempted to climb the city walls, but Southern Xia had already placed large amounts of talisman traps on the city walls. As long as the Warhounds touched the traps, they would immediately trigger flames, frost, or explosions. How could it be easy for the Warhound's army to climb the city walls? The southern summer defenders just had to hold their ground, it was victory as long as the city was not broken. The calm martial ruler had escaped from Tsang's state and killed his way back, which would instantly change the situation. The Fang King knew this, so he did not hesitate to go crazy. The Fang King coldly stared at the intense battlefield, move out with the vulture cavalry. Large amounts of black dots appeared in the clouds at this time. Countless Warhound soldiers riding vultures passed through the defensive line and appeared in the sky above Imperial City. After all, Royal City was not a fortress. The frontline fortresses were almost completely enclosed fortresses, but it was impossible for Royal City to be enclosed. Therefore, the aerial troops could completely bypass the defensive line and land in the center of the city to launch an attack, breaking through Royal City's defenses from the inside. Large amounts of Warhound soldiers fell down from the sky like dumplings. The Warhound's vulture cavalry had transported at least 30,000–40,000 Warhounds elites into Imperial City. If these 30,000–40,000 elites and 20,000 vulture cavalry attacked from the inside, it would be a large disturbance and trouble for Southern Xia. Wild Flame Legion, block the enemy's airborne ground troops. The Burning Sun ruler immediately ordered the Nangong family's Wild Flame Heavy Armor Corps to move out and form a solid defense for Imperial City. Griffin Knights, go forward and tie down these air forces. The 2,000 Griffins had been waiting for a long time. When they received the Burning Sun ruler's order, they immediately flew into the air and attacked the vulture cavalry that was 10 times the number in Imperial City. Although the Griffin Knights didn't have the advantage in numbers, their imposing manner wasn't inferior at all. The Griffins themselves were powerful level 2 magical beasts, and every single royal knight was a top-notch elite of Southern Xia. Even if the enemy outnumbered them 10-1, they would still have the ability to fight. Is this the strongest legion of Southern Xia? The commander of the vulture cavalry sneered, what a ridiculous bunch of fools. The Griffin Knights were the peak force protecting Southern Xia and Imperial City. In order to create the Griffin Knights, Southern Xia bought griffins from foreign sources at a high price each year and invested large amounts of resources into training the Griffin Knights. The Griffin Knights represented Southern Xia's authority in a certain sense. If they could defeat this army, it would be a destructive blow to Southern Xia's morale. Since they're seeking death, we'll let them see how strong our Eagle Burial Kingdom's air force is. The Vulture Cavalry commander loudly ordered, kill. The Griffin Knight commander faced the dense amount of Vulture Cavalry and immediately raised his spear high up as he shouted, prepare for battle. The two airborne armies quickly moved, and when they were about to collide, the Griffin Knight commander loudly shouted, "Wind Blade Array!" 2,000 griffins simultaneously gathered their strength and released a wave of azure wind blades. The griffins were much stronger than the vultures, so this storm-like wind blade attack was very powerful. If they directly hit the vultures, they would definitely not be able to withstand it. In an instant, a large number of them would be wiped out. But, how could it be this easy? The vulture cavalry was a regular army of the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Not only were they well trained, they also had rich battle experience. When the griffins gathered their strength, the vulture cavalry were already prepared and dodged at the same time. The blue wind blades passed through them, but not many of them hit their targets. Looking from the ground, the orderly vulture cavalry suddenly exploded. All the vulture cavalry moved in different directions, instantly forming a semicircle that seemed like it was trying to swallow the Griffin Knights. Kill them! The vulture cavalry completely surrounded the Griffin Knights, sealing off the space around them. After all, the vulture cavalry had the advantage in numbers. If they used a blockade strategy, the Griffin cavalry's movements would be hindered. Although the Royal Knights were very strong and the Griffin mounts were very fierce, the Warhound's vulture cavalry weren't bad either. Once they were surrounded by the vulture cavalry, it would be hard for them to escape in a short period of time. The Griffin Knight commander's face fell. Break through. How could it be that easy? Release the arrows. The Griffin Knights each had a spear. Most of the time, they relied on their griffins to charge through enemy lines. Griffins could shoot powerful wind blades, which could make up for their lack of ranged attacks. Thus, the Griffin Knights didn't use ranged weapons. The vulture cavalry's situation was different. The vulture beasts had thick skin and flesh, and their speed when carrying heavy loads was outstanding. However, they didn't have the ability to attack from a distance. Because of this, during the selection process of the vulture cavalry, the priority was to be a sharpshooter. There were even some strong vulture beasts that were paired with two cavalrymen, one in charge of close combat and the other in charge of long-range attacks. The Griffin Knights had just entered close combat with the first row of vulture cavalry when the second and third row of vultures released a large wave of arrows. The front lines were pinned down by the melee attackers, while the back lines were shot from the shadows. With such a combination of ranged attacks and melee attacks, the Griffin cavalry couldn't hold on for long even with the Griffin's wind elemental defensive barrier. Almost immediately, the Griffin cavalry fell into a disadvantageous position. They tried to break out of the encirclement several times but failed. It really wasn't good. Southern Xia was a small country in the end, so they lacked experience in aerial battles. Even the elite Griffin Knights did not have much experience in aerial battles, so when they fought against a trained aerial force, even if they had an advantage in individual strength, they would still be suppressed. Dong, dong, dong. The Warhound's black tide of attacks became even fiercer. Whether it was the Imperial City or the Warhounds, the casualties were all increasing. Because the vulture cavalry had sent a group of airborne soldiers into southern Xia, the city walls were in chaos. There were quite a few Warhound soldiers that didn't fear death climbing up the walls. Throw the bombs. Quickly. The southern Xia defenders had no way of dealing with the wildly climbing Warhound soldiers, so they could only throw the last batch of source energy bombs down from the city walls. In an instant, the earth shook and large amounts of explosions appeared on the city walls. Each source energy bomb released a terrifying light and heat, causing the Imperial City to tremble under this terrifying might. Each explosion occurred where the Warhound soldiers were gathered, instantly tearing apart over 100 Warhound soldiers. The Warhound's army was shocked by the terrifying might of the source energy bombs. The might of these weapons was just too terrifying. Don't care about them, continue killing. Southern Xia's city walls are about to be broken. The Warhound's army was incomparably fierce. These powerful source energy bombs could barely suppress the Warhound's attack, but it didn't take long for the Warhounds to return, attacking the city walls like ants. In terms of defense, Southern Xia's Imperial City could not compare to the frontline fortress. Because Imperial City was too big and there were too many people, there were 9 city gates. The Warhound's army attacked 7 of the city gates at the same time, so Miracle Commerce had a limited amount of source energy bombs. Now that they were almost used up, there was no way to stop the Warhounds from attacking the city. The Griffin Knights that Southern Xia was proud of were currently being suppressed by the Vulture Cavalry, so they had no way to reinforce the defenses. Instead, more and more Warhound soldiers were creating chaos in Imperial City, wantonly setting fires and attacking, making the situation even more chaotic. Finally, there was a Warhound's army that successfully climbed up the city walls. The following troops continued to pour in like a tide, each one of them fighting without fear of death. The Southern Xia army was much weaker in comparison. Meng Qinggu saw that many parts of the city walls were invaded by the Warhound's army and she knew that Imperial City couldn't hold on much longer. She immediately said to the Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler, "It's about time." The 2 rulers nodded. The Burning Sun ruler raised a flag high up and a horn sounded in Southern Xia's Imperial City. The Fang King knit his brows when he saw this. Could it be that Southern Xia still had a move they hadn't used? At this time, the Griffin Knights that were surrounded by the Vulture Cavalry suddenly began to counterattack. The 2,000 Griffin Knights charged forward with a lance in one hand and a source energy submachine gun in the other. This weapon is... Wang Tianlong was shocked when he saw the weapon the Griffin Knights were using. Wang Tianlong was not unfamiliar with this thing, he had seen it in Chu Tian's hands before. Only Wang Tianlong had always thought that it was a special secret treasure, but who would have thought that the Griffin Knights would all have one? Wang Tianlong had seen the might of this weapon before. If everyone had one, how terrifying would that be? The Griffin Knight commander loudly shouted, "Kill them all." The Warhounds did not even have time to react before the source energy submachine gun spat out a dazzling white flame. Over 1,000 energy bullets flew out faster than arrows. The firing speed was too fast and the attack was too sudden. How could the Vulture Cavalry resist at such a close distance? In an instant, several hundred vultures fell from the sky, creating a gap in the Vulture Cavalry's encirclement. The Griffin Knights used a storm of bullets to create a gap in the Vulture Cavalry's formation, causing heavy casualties to the vultures. Then they charged down the city walls and the muzzles of their submachine guns swept across the Warhound soldiers on the city walls. The sky was filled with dense light bullets. This was the effect of 2,000 source energy submachine guns firing at the same time. When the source energy bullets weren't fired, not only were they small, they were also faster than arrows. Shooting at such a close distance, these Warhound soldiers did not have time to dodge at all. They were instantly killed, greatly reducing the pressure on the city walls. This was the Nangong family's over 10,000 Wild Flame heavy armor army. Their left hands held pistols and their right hands held large swords, currently fighting the Warhound soldiers that dropped in. There was no suspense in the result as the Warhound soldiers were defeated in one battle. How could they block this terrifying army? The Nangong family's Wild Flame heavy armor army already had strong close combat abilities and now with the assistance of the pistols, they could easily pierce through an awakened soul cultivator's protective spirit energy. These Warhound soldiers that dropped in were elites, but how many of them were awakened soul cultivators? This was a completely one-sided situation. They had regained their air superiority, relieved the pressure on the city walls, and cleared out the enemies in the city. The southern summer Imperial City was becoming smoother and smoother, so the Warhounds would not be able to break through Imperial City. These humans really do have some methods. The Fang King's eyes seemed like they were spitting fire, but he was not flustered and exasperated. Rather he calmly said, "How are the preparations on that side?" Wang Tianlong confidently said, "Please be assured, Fang King. Everything is prepared, these fellows won't be happy for long." "Good. Inform the Demon Wolf Cavalry to prepare to attack." Chapter 335. The Warhound soldiers that had been dropped by the Vulture Knights were being pushed back by the Nangong family's Wild Flame army. The Wild Flame army was Southern Xia's strongest infantry army. Each one was covered in incomparably thick armor, and it was hard for early awakened soul realm experts to break through their defenses. Moreover, the Wild Flame army was raised using the Nangong family's secret technique, so they were all tall and strong, almost not feeling any pain. Although they were in the peak 9th body refinement layer, their individual strength was close to an awakened soul cultivator. An entire 10,000 Wild Flame warriors held giant broadswords in their right hands and source energy pistols in their left. The Warhound soldiers tried to break through the encirclement several times but failed, finally being forced back together. Almost at the same time, the Griffin Knights supported the city walls, instantly eliminating the pressure on the Southern Summer Army, giving the Southern Summer Army enough time to regain their footing. Although Imperial City was in a mess because of the flames of battle, the most dangerous wave of attacks had been blocked at this moment. The Griffin Knights once again began fighting with the Vulture Knights. Each Griffin Knight had at least one energy magazine left. In front of the high firing speed and firepower of the Source Energy submachine guns, the Vulture Knights could not form a proper battle formation. After a few rounds of attacks from the Griffin Knights, the Vulture Knights had suffered at least 3-4 times the casualties of the Griffin Knights. Ha, 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 ha. The Burning Sun ruler punched a Warhound's general's body. His body was covered in blood and his red hair danced in the wind. He stared at the retreating Warhound soldiers and wildly laughed. The Warhounds only amount to this much, daring to attack my southern summer country. I'll make sure you never return. The refined ruler had also killed several high-level generals. At this moment, the most dangerous wave of attacks from the Warhounds had been blocked. The Warhounds' Vulture Knights had suffered heavy casualties and the elites that had been dropped into the city had been chased by the Wild Flame army, with most of them having already died. The Warhounds had surrounded the city and suffered heavy casualties. If they chose to retreat now, it would not be easy to attack the city again. On one hand, after this battle, Southern Xia's confidence had increased, and on the other hand, the calm martial ruler was about to return. The Southern Summer Cavalry did not have much time left for the Warhounds. Miracle Commerce's source energy weapons had played a crucial role. It was because of the strong source energy weapons that the Griffin Knights could escape from their disadvantage, allowing the Wild Flame army to easily defeat the Warhounds' elites. It was also because of the deterrence of the source energy weapons that the Warhounds' experts, including the Fang King, did not dare act rashly, greatly reducing the pressure on their defenses. The refined ruler took out the dark gold pen from the heart of a Warhound's general. When his eyes swept over the Warhound's army, he suddenly noticed a different situation. Where did their main cavalry go? With these words, the Burning Sun ruler was alerted. The most important part of the Warhound's army was the demonic wolf cavalry. This was an army with a battle strength that made people's blood run cold. Only no matter how intense the battle was, the Fang King had always been calm and did not use this army to attack the city. Now that they looked over, they were surprised to find that the nightmarish Black Army had already disappeared. Southern Xia was cheering for their victory. The Burning Sun ruler stared at the Fang King. Although they were very far away, the Fang King's eyes did not contain any anger or frustration. Rather, there was a deep sense of cunning, as if he was waiting for something. This is bad. Could it be that he still had a backup plan? When the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler felt this was bad, there was a series of sounds of fighting that came from the center of Imperial City. There were also the faint roars of angry wolves mixed in. The Warhounds' elites that had been suppressed by the Wild Flame army suddenly began to wildly counterattack like they were on steroids. Before the Wild Flame army could react, from the roofs and corners of the surroundings, there were even people that jumped over the walls. Like a flood, thousands of Black Wolf cavalry appeared. This is bad. It was too sudden and the Wild Flame army did not have time to counterattack. Countless demonic wolf cavalry swarmed over, instantly cutting into the Wild Flame army's formation. Moreover, their numbers kept increasing, surpassing the Wild Flame army in an instant. It was like a group of wild dogs fighting over a delicious piece of meat, instantly throwing the Wild Flame army into chaos. The Warhounds' cavalry had appeared in Imperial City. Everyone was shocked. What was going on? Why would the Warhound's cavalry appear in the city? A person quickly ran over to report, the enemy is coming from the direction of the Nangong family. This is impossible. The Burning Sun ruler could not help but believe this. A large group of incomparably fierce black figures were continuously charging out. The agile demonic wolf cavalry jumped over the roofs, killing the innocent civilians and soldiers on the streets. 5,000, 8,000, 10,000. 20,000, 30,000. The Burning Sun ruler's wild flame heavy armored army in the city were instantly submerged. The demonic wolf cavalry became larger and larger, appearing in an endless stream. What the hell is going on? The true Spirit Realm Warhound's chief on the side was already impatient. Too much nonsense, attack. The demon wolf cavalry wildly charged at the city walls. Southern Xia's defenses were all external, so now that the enemy was attacking from the inside, how could they defend? The Fang King could feel the change in the city from outside the city. He gave a cold smile and raised the purple gold thunder god's drum in his hand. The time has come, follow me to attack the city. The Fang King personally made a move. Other than the Fang King, the Warhounds had at least 4 other true Spirit Realm experts. The number, scale, and battle strength of their army far surpassed that of Southern Xia. Now that they were attacking Imperial City from the inside, how could the Southern Summer Country defend it? 2 rulers of the Southern Summer Country, let me face you. The Fang King stomped on the ground and jumped several dozen meters off the city walls. Using the depression in the city walls, he jumped several dozen meters again and actually landed on top of the city walls. The city walls were already burning and the soldiers were resisting the enemies coming from all directions. How could they concentrate their firepower on the Fang King? The Fang King casually raised the purple gold thunder god's drum in his hand and several southern summer soldiers surrounding him were turned to ashes by the lightning. The Burning Sun ruler said to Meng Qingguo beside him, "You guys retreat first and defend the royal palace." Chen Bingyu brought Meng Qingguo away from the battlefield. This battle was not something they could interfere with. The Fang King did not chase and he disdained chasing because the only people worthy of being his opponent in the entire imperial city were these 2. The Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler did not say a word as they attacked the Fang King at the same time. Hung, hung, hung. The entire city walls exploded. 3 true Spirit Realm experts fiercely clashed and the destructive power of this level of battle was very shocking. Large pieces of the city walls collapsed and the scene turned into a chaotic mess. At this time, 3 figures flew out at the same time and landed on the ruins. Both sides had only exchanged a few moves, but the refined ruler and the Burning Sun ruler were both injured, while the Fang King did not seem to have any injuries at all. He still had a relaxed appearance and just from this point, it could be seen how big the difference in strength was. The Fang King said with a laugh of ridicule, "The 3 rulers of the Southern Summer Country only have this much strength?" At this time, they were surrounded by the Warhound's army on all sides. The Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler looked at each other, retreat. The 2 of them retreated and several Warhound's plains chiefs chased after them, but they were stopped by the Fang King. The Fang King calmly said, "There is no need to worry about 2 true spirit cultivators, our mission is to take down the Southern Summer Imperial City. Even if the Tsang State Cavalry arrives, they won't be able to turn the situation around. No matter what tricks the other side plays, victory will still belong to us in the end. Yes. You will lead the troops to sweep through the Southern Summer Army and destroy their last resistance." The Fang King's eyes were as cold as ice. As for these people, it doesn't matter if they live for a few more hours. Chapter 336. Chu Tian had been in a state of chaos for the past few days. He felt like he was floating in an empty space and there were some cryptic and profound sounds lingering in his ears, sometimes near and sometimes far, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. Chu Tian felt like his entire body was immersed in chaos and he was sinking into a bottomless abyss. However, at that moment, a towering and majestic demon god appeared in the endless darkness. This demon god had 9 eyes, and each eye had a different color. Each color represented a profound power in the world, and each eye seemed to contain the great Tao of heaven and earth. White was space, silver was time, green was life, black was death, purple was the soul, and gold was divine sense. The 9 eyes each represented an extraordinary power. The 9-eyed demon god was a supreme being that had 9 kinds of power outside of elemental energy. Chu Tian was very familiar with the 9-eyed demon god's power because he was Chu Tian and Chu Tian was him. It was just a reincarnation. However, what surprised Chu Tian the most was that the 9-eyed demon god felt very unfamiliar to him at this moment. This was because there was another eye on the 9-eyed demon god's body. This eye was closed the entire time, but it was releasing an incredible power. This eye is... Chu Tian felt like the 10th eye was about to open and an irresistible power covered him, pulling Chu Tian out of the abyss of his consciousness. Was this just a dream? When Chu Tian woke up, he was covered in sweat. The 10th eye was the power sealed by the nameless ancient god, and the nameless ancient god had warned Chu Tian to not open this eye easily, otherwise there would be unimaginable consequences. What kind of power did this eye represent? Chu Tian felt a strong headache. Although he had rested for several days and his body hadn't recovered, his spiritual energy had gradually returned to normal. At least he could get out of bed and walk. Yingying, why is it so noisy outside? Chu Tian, you're finally awake. Meng Yingying had a worried expression as she looked out the window. When she heard Chu Tian's voice, she immediately turned around in pleasant surprise, but then she said in a worried and fearful voice, Southern Xia's army has been defeated again and the warhounds have killed their way into Imperial City. All the soldiers and civilians have surrendered and are fighting to the death, causing the entire Imperial City to fall into chaos. What? He was defeated again. Chu Tian immediately sat up. What the hell are these Southern Xia troops doing? The front lines fell because of a sneak attack. It's understandable that they weren't prepared, but how did King City fall as well? Meng Yingying gave a sigh. I don't know, elder sister won't let me go out. However, I heard elder sister Nangong say that it was the departing flame marquis who betrayed us and led the warhounds' army into the city through a secret passage. They worked together to break the city. Another traitor? Chu Tian felt a headache. If even Imperial City fell, wouldn't Southern Xia be finished? Like this, what would happen to the miracle commerce that Chu Tian had spent half a year to build? Where are we? Chu Tian found that this place was not the miracle commerce headquarters. The royal palace. For safety, elder sister ordered her subordinates to destroy the Yun sect research facility in Imperial City and burn the headquarters. Then she brought the other people from Miracle Commerce to the royal palace. The Burning Sun ruler and the Refined ruler still have over 100,000 soldiers fighting to the death, using the royal palace as a stronghold. However, there are too many enemies, I think. Imperial City can't be defended, we need to discuss a retreat plan. Quickly come with me. Before he finished, the door was pushed open and Meng Qinggu quickly walked in. When she saw Chu Tian sitting up, she revealed a surprised expression. Chu Tian? You woke up at the right time. Chu Tian did not know what had happened recently. Did you just say retreat? What do you mean? There's no time to explain right now, every minute is more dangerous. Meng Qinggu quickly said to Meng Yingying, quickly, let's go to the main hall. The main hall of the palace was not as glorious and peaceful as it usually was. At this moment, it was filled with armored warriors. Looking out from the main hall, half of the city was burning. The thick black smoke had long covered the entire sky. Chu Tian saw several familiar faces, like the Burning Sun ruler, the Refined ruler, Gu Qianqiu, Shen Fengho, the Golden Arrow Marquis, the Four Direction Marquis, and others. Everyone was bathed in blood and covered in wounds. When everyone saw Chu Tian, they revealed a complex expression. Chu Tian weakly said, the general situation, I've already heard about it. Now that Imperial City has fallen, there are only a few 100,000 soldiers left to defend the royal palace. I'm afraid we won't be able to stop the war hounds for long, so it's too late to do anything now. Have you thought about how to retreat? The Burning Sun ruler stomped his chest in regret. The fall of Imperial City is all this ruler's fault. How could the Nangong family give birth to such an unfilial son? The situation is already lost, it's too late to regret. The refined ruler had a defeated look on his face at this moment. The southern summer country's north can't be defended. The Imperial region, Tsang State, and the departing Flame Marquis Furnace State will be lost, but the southern summer country has 6 states in the south. Each state has an average of over 100,000 soldiers, as well as the tens of thousands of miles of mountains and the 4 states' lake as a barrier. Perhaps they can stop the war hounds from swallowing the southern summer country. What we need to do now is to try our best to preserve the southern summer country's strength and defend the 6 southern states. There was really no way to reverse the current situation. The Fang King had experts like Clouds and his army had an overwhelming advantage. Imperial City had already fallen and was in chaos, being heavily damaged. Now that things had developed to this point, not to mention it was impossible to turn defeat into victory, even if they created a miracle and drove away the Warhound's army, so what? The front lines had collapsed and Imperial City had been destroyed. Was there any meaning in the Imperial region like this? At this moment, it was better to preserve their strength and move to the south, using their geographical advantage to block the Warhound's invasion. The problem was how to move. The sounds of fighting outside were becoming more and more intense. The Burning Sun ruler said, "The Dongfang family has a secret passage in the royal palace. The eldest prince Dongfang Haoran has the authority to open it and knows how to open it. Now I ask the great scholar, the country-guarding ruler, and the dukes to bring the remaining 1,000 royal knights and 20,000 elites of the 3 races to leave Imperial City through the passage. Of the 6 southern states, Central State has the best position and can become the new center of Southern Xia, preserving the last bloodline of the Southern Xia tribes." Dongfang Haoran was also covered in blood as he immediately walked out, understood. If this many people evacuate, will the Warhounds not care? The Burning Sun ruler revealed a determined expression, "Leave in peace. The refined ruler and I will lead the last of Imperial City's elites and fight the Warhounds to the last moment. With us stalling for time here, they won't be able to chase after you." The meaning behind these words was that the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler were prepared to fight to the end. Why must the 2 rulers defend a broken city to the death? Gu Qianqiu immediately said, "Where there's life, there's hope." The Burning Sun ruler decisively said, "The fall of Imperial City is this ruler's greatest crime. I have let down the Nangong family's Lai Zhu and the countless heroes of Southern Xia. Only a bloody battle can redeem myself. This ruler has already decided to bring the Nangong family's direct descendants to defend, and the Nangong family's branch families and youths under 20 will all be managed by Nangong Yun. From today on, Nangong Yun will be a new member of the Nangong family. I hope that we can treat the Nangong family's descendants well and let the phoenix be reborn in flames." Because of the departing Flame Marquis betrayal, the Burning Sun ruler was filled with guilt, so he decided to stay behind to buy time for everyone. This was understandable, but why did the refined ruler stay behind? There weren't many true spirit realm experts in Southern Xia. Southern Xia's information system is managed by the Shengguan family. The Warhound plains changed and the Warhound's army suddenly attacked, but this ruler did not notice it at all, causing Southern Xia to fall into disaster. The root of this is the Shengguan family's fault. The refined ruler said with a heavy expression, "This ruler has led the Shengguan family for several decades, but I have only been obsessed with power and benefits. I have forgotten the teachings of my ancestors and abandoned my duty. This ruler is incompetent. The Shengguan family's foundation is in Imperial City, so how could they be fine now that their nest has fallen? The Shengguan family is guilty, so we will fight to the last moment." These 2 people made Chu Tian suddenly understand something. The calm martial ruler had said that the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler were different from the other families he had met. Chu Tian did not understand at that time, but now he knew what he was referring to. From these 2 noble rulers, Chu Tian saw something normal families did not have, honor and dignity. As rulers of the southern summer country, even if they knew they would die, they would still fight to the last moment. Chu Tian. A low and deep voice sounded in his ears. The Western Marquis was holding a pen dripping with blood as he looked at him. To be honest, I still hate you to the bone, but it's a pity that I won't have a chance to take revenge. If you are a southern summer man, you will shoulder your responsibilities. Otherwise, even if I turn into an evil spirit in the underworld, I will not let you off. Hong. The sound of the walls collapsing came from the royal palace. The Burning Sun ruler shouted at everyone, retreat, otherwise it will be too late. The overall situation is important. The refined ruler also said, let's go. Chu Tian cupped his hands to the two of them. Today's disaster is not only a humiliation for everyone, it is also a humiliation for me, Chu Tian. Today, I, Chu Tian, swear that there will be a day when the Warhound's plains will be flattened. The Burning Sun ruler gave a laugh. It's enough with your words. The Warhound's kingdom's destruction is just around the corner. My king has given you the title of country guarding ruler in this crisis. It is clear that he has high hopes for you. Now that southern Xia is in danger, I hope that the ruler can withstand the collapse of the southern summer country in this critical moment. The refined ruler walked in front of Chu Tian. The grudge between you and the Shangguan family will be written off by this ruler. Please treat the Shangguan family's descendants well. Let's go. It will be too late if we don't leave now. Gu Qianqiu said to Dongfang Haoren, quickly, open the secret passage. The youths and branches of the three great clans, the Griffin Knights, the important scholars, and geniuses, there were a total of 20,000 people. They first went to the royal palace treasury to move the things that could be moved, and the things that couldn't be moved were burned down. Finally, under Dongfang Haoren's lead, they left through the royal palace's secret passage. Hung, dong, dong. The royal palace doors slowly opened. The Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler looked at the southern summer imperial city in flames as well as the dense Warhound's army. Their hearts were filled with emotions. They never would have thought that the bustling city from a few days ago would have this kind of earth-shattering change in just a few short nights. The southern summer country that had rested for several decades had been completely burned down by a single fire. The southern summer king was dead. The frontline marshal Dongfang Haoren was dead. Next was the Burning Sun ruler and the refined ruler. Old man Nangong, we are a bit unwilling to end things like this. That's right, we are too unwilling. But we are old, so we'll leave the future to the youths. At least we can leave in a beautiful manner, our lives won't be in vain. Let's go. The two true spirit experts flew into the air at the same time, leading the experts of the three great clans and their final army to attack the Warhound's army one last time. Fighting like cornered beasts, each person had the determination to die. The Warhound's army suffered a fierce attack and the fierce battle lasted for half a day. The next morning, the flames of battle gradually calmed down. The Fang King stood in the ruined royal palace and looked over the entire imperial city. From today onwards, this land would be completely conquered by him. Reporting to the Fang King, Dongfang Zhan, Shangguan Sangfeng, and Nangong Yan's corpses have already been buried in imperial city. Good. Wang Tianlong anxiously charged in and said, we haven't found the corpses of Chu Tian's group. What are you nervous about? A Warhound's chief said in an uncaring voice, in this kind of battle, it is normal for the corpses to be destroyed. Impossible. Wang Tianlong had a premonition, he is most likely still alive. The Warhound soldiers did not care. So what if he was alive? The southern summer imperial city had been captured and the elites had all been killed, what else could they do to turn things around? The Fang King thought about it and said, I'll give you the vulture group, search for their whereabouts. It was too late. The escape route Meng Qinggu had left was now in use. At this time, at Sung State's ferry, the giant shark gang fleet she had arranged ahead of time was already waiting. The younger generation of the three great clans and the important talents of Imperial City were currently boarding in an orderly manner. Meng Qinggu looked at the hazy sky and her heart was very heavy. She never thought that they would leave Imperial City like this. The armies of the 6 southern states added together could not compare to an imperial region. So, after the warhounds conquered the north, they would continue to invade the southern summer country. The crisis had not been resolved and the situation was still very serious. But Meng Yingying still had confidence in Chu Tian. In fact, Meng Yingying was the one who blindly believed in Chu Tian out of everyone here. The attack on the front lines was too sudden and Chu Tian did not have time to react. When Imperial City was attacked, Chu Tian was unconscious, so he had no choice but to run away. The situation was different now. Central State was the origin of miracle commerce and Chu Tian had enough time to prepare. This time the warhounds would not be facing southern Xia, but rather the miracle commerce led by Chu Tian. The giant shark gang fleet arrived at the Central State port. Everyone disembarked. In just a few months, Central State had undergone earth-shattering changes. There were several industrial parks on the outskirts of the city and over 1,000 large ships were docked at the port at the same time. There were also countless large airships flying in the sky. This bustling scene was not inferior to Imperial City at all. The tense situation in the north did not seem to have spread to this place. Central State City was still rich and busy. The Meng Qinggu sisters, Nangong Yun, and Chen Bingyu all sighed. They never thought that they would come back this quickly. But there was no time to reminisce. The warhounds would first attack Central State. Once Central State fell, not only would there be no hope for southern Xia, miracle commerce would also be uprooted. Chu Tian would not allow this to happen. He came to the Central State Yun sect and gathered everyone. If my guesses aren't wrong, in 10 days or half a month, the warhounds will attack Central State through the waterways. The high-level people of Imperial City and Central State were all gathered together, listening to Chu Tian's words with serious expressions. There were several thousand miles of mountains in the north of Central State and it would not be easy for the warhounds to cross them. The best way was to steal southern Xia's warships and attack Central State City through the waterways. The warhounds have lived in the Warhound Plains for generations and fighting on water is not their specialty. We have the advantage, but this advantage is not enough because the warhounds will receive the support of the Eagle Burial Kingdom's Air Force and use the Air Force to cover the water force. If it's like this, we will be at a complete disadvantage with our lacking Air Force. Chu Tian ordered, I declare that from now on, the entire state will be under military control and all resources will be used for battle. Not only do we need to win this battle, we need to win a beautiful victory. Everyone was filled with worry. Did they really have a chance of winning? The Imperial region had over 100 soldiers, gathering half of southern Xia's military strength. In terms of battle strength, it was around 80% of southern Xia's strength and there was also the front line that southern Xia had spent several generations to build. Even with this kind of strong defense, it would still fall in a week. The difference in strength between the warhounds and southern Xia was too large. Even if the southern states could rely on the mountains and rivers to defend, in front of a strong power, what use would a defensive line have? Relax, once the warhounds come to Central State, I will make it so that they won't be able to return. Chu Tian had half a month to prepare. Although it seemed very rushed, it was actually more than enough. We will use all the power of the Yun Sect's laboratory and the industrial foundation that Miracle Commerce has built in Central State in the last half year to create several new weapons for Central State. The scholars whispered to each other and revealed expressions of interest. Yun Tianhe asked in a curious voice, what weapon does the chairman want to invent? Chu Tian first showed a blueprint. When the Yun sect scholars saw this blueprint, they all felt it was very familiar because this blueprint was very similar to the source energy bombs they had made before. Only Chu Tian had made a large number of modifications, making the source energy bombs look very complete. That's right, this is the source energy bomb. I have modified and improved the Yun sect's bombs, making it more controllable and safer. Other than that, I have developed several crude oil refining techniques that will allow us to make even more powerful and destructive heavy explosives. Everyone's mood was slightly excited. The battle in Imperial City was too rushed and Miracle Commerce had just entered Imperial region, so the infrastructure and equipment were not complete. Although Meng Qinggu wanted to use the source energy bombs, she didn't have the ability to make more. Even so, it had a large effect and left a deep impression on everyone. Now the situation was different. Central State was the birthplace of Miracle Commerce. Miracle Commerce had been developing in Central State for an entire half a year and now it had a preliminary industrial scale. Whether it was resources or production, it could not be compared to Imperial City. Chu Tian showed several blueprints that he had thought of on the way back to the warship. This is a single soldier source energy bomb. It's made from highly concentrated crude oil and its specialty is that it can be carried and used by a single soldier. It doesn't have a wide range, but it has a large destructive power. I named it Source Energy Grenade. The Source Energy Grenade was very simple to make and it did not have a large range. It was mainly used by soldiers on the battlefield and was used to kill enemies from a distance. As long as a Source Energy Grenade landed on an enemy, even a true Soul Realm expert would be heavily injured or even killed. Other than that, using a simple catapult to launch the bomb cannot guarantee its safety. Moreover, the efficiency and accuracy are too low. Chu Tian showed another design idea. We need to make a more accurate source energy bomb launcher. Not only does it have an automatic firing process, it can also be more precise. Different launchers can fire different bombs, so we can achieve a stronger killing effect. Chu Tian listed several more plans. The source energy bomb could be combined with crossbow bolts, the bomb could be made into arrows, and there were also floating mines. Everyone gasped in amazement. Genius, what was called a genius? Chu Tian's plans were all given to the Yun Sect's design department. As for how much they could complete, it all depended on luck. Chu Tian was only responsible for improving the bomb. As for whether it could be used in weapons, that would depend on Miracle Commerce's current research ability. As for the source energy bomb, I've finished introducing it. Chu Tian then changed the topic. The source energy bomb is very strong, but with our current technology and resources, the source energy bomb we can make can only threaten awakened soul realm cultivators. It is a limited threat to true spirit realm cultivators. Other than that, we have flaws in range and other aspects, so we need to design a stronger and more powerful weapon to deal with true spirit realm cultivators. Actually, the effect of the source energy bomb was already very shocking. Central State's current resources and production was enough to produce large amounts of bombs before the Warhound's army moved south. This could change the situation of the battle. Could it be that Chu Tian had an even stronger weapon? Chu Tian took out a giant blueprint and everyone was stunned. This blueprint looked like a source energy pistol, but it was much larger. Just the barrel was over 4 meters long and the structure was incomparably complex. There were at least 4 magazines designed to supply energy. It looked just like an enlarged source energy pistol. The source energy array used in it, whether it was the complexity or the level, it was not something current source energy firearms could compare to. Everyone look carefully, this is the new weapon Miracle Commerce will be developing. Chu Tian pointed at the blueprint and introduced it. As you can see, this weapon is several dozen times larger than the source energy firearms. I'll call it the source energy cannon. The might of a source energy cannon is around 200 times that of the source energy pistol. 200 times the power. What kind of concept was that? Even with the protective spirit energy of a true spirit realm expert, it would be hard for them to take a few shots without being injured. This time, it wasn't just the Yun sect scholars, even the laymen who didn't understand were shocked. Once this weapon appeared, it would be a super terrifying killing weapon. A single shot would be able to pierce through the enemy's battleship and even a true spirit expert would find it hard to block this kind of attack. Chapter 338. The source energy cannons have 100 times the power of the source energy guns, but the energy consumption is also 100 times higher. Not only does it require a high-energy magazine, it also requires the materials needed to make the source energy cannons. With our current battery technology, weapon refining technology, and the materials we have on hand, I'm afraid it will be hard to meet the requirements. Chu Tian did not care about Yun Tianhe's question at all. There's no need to worry, I've already thought of a method to refine high-strength crystal oil while I was in Imperial City. The Central State Battery Base and the military base barely meet the requirements. As for the materials, when we left Imperial City, we brought out several hundred-year-old metals that can withstand the energy of the source energy cannons. Chu Tian also proposed a heavy firearm. This kind of firearm was also made from a very expensive rare metal. Its specialty was that it could withstand high speeds for a long time, so it was suitable to be used to create a high capacity, high firing rate, and long-lasting firearm. Whether it was the source energy cannons or the heavy source energy guns, they were all weapons of mass destruction. This had a very high requirement for technology and materials, so Chu Tian had to personally participate in the research to ensure that it could be produced before the warhounds attacked. The Yun sect already had a very strong research ability. Now that the Imperial City Yun sect and the Central State Yun sect had merged, their strength naturally increased by several times. Several hundred top scholars worked day and night, several dozen experimental fields were operating at the same time, and several thousand people from the Yun sect were participating. After many experiments and calculations, it only took a few days for the results to appear. Several dozen airships went back and forth between Central State and South Sky City, transporting large amounts of refined crystal oil from the oil fields. Miracle Commerce's 5 crystal oil warehouses in the main city were filled to the brim. When they had enough materials, the several factories began to operate at the same time. Over 10,000 workers and over 1,000 array masters began to work. Meng Qinggu personally went to the factories to inspect the situation. There was a fist-sized object that had already been produced several hundred times. It was perfectly round like a fruit and was covered in runes and lines. It was filled with highly compressed crystal oil and there was a red button at the top. As long as this button was pressed, the source energy battery would activate the array, causing the crystal oil inside to explode. This was the elemental energy grenade. The structure was not complicated and it was easy to produce. Because it was small, each soldier could carry 1 or 2 and it would have a terrifying effect on the battlefield. Even if one was thrown onto an expert in the 8th or 9th awakened soul layer, it would still cripple them. In the source energy weapon warehouse, there were a total of 50,000 source energy firearms, of which there were over 5,000 source energy submachine guns. This was far more than the weapons stored in Imperial City. This batch of weapons was enough to make up for the lack of quality and strength of the Central State Army. Not bad. When Meng Qinggu saw the neatly arranged weapons, her heart filled with confidence. At this time, the giant shark gang gave Meng Qinggu a piece of good news. After the Warhounds Kingdom's Fang King captured Imperial City, he wanted to immediately attack the calm martial ruler's army, but the calm martial ruler attacked the 3 northern ports, taking away all the warships. Even if he didn't take away the ships, the docks were all burned down. Now the calm martial ruler is leading the remaining 300,000 southern summer cavalry to meet us from the north. The Central State Army was small and weak, so the calm martial ruler had come at the right time. The calm martial ruler had the highest status of the southern summer 3 rulers. He was a person that could support half of the southern summer country, not to mention that he had brought a large group of elites to Central State. The calm martial ruler had not only taken all the ships, he had also burned down the ports. This was without a doubt to delay the Warhounds' attack, giving Chu Tian a chance in Central State. Immediately prepare to welcome them. Meng Qinggu brought a group of people from Miracle Commerce to the Central State port. First they cleared out most of the port and docks, then they built a temporary army camp. 2 days later, several hundred large warships appeared in front of them. The calm martial ruler had brought 280,000 elite cavalry to Central State this time, with most of them being the storm cavalry. This was one of the strongest main forces of southern Xia. Southern Xia's 400,000 cavalry was the most important battle force, with half of them in Imperial City and the other half in Song State. If this army was not on duty when the battle began, it was unknown if the Fang King's army could capture Imperial City. Now that this army had come to Central State, they would be a great help in defending Central State. The fall of the Imperial region was a large blow to the calm martial ruler. But the calm martial ruler did not seem angry or flustered, rather he seemed very calm. As the commander-in-chief of the Southern Xia army, he was very good at hiding his emotions. Southern Xia's disaster, the calm martial ruler clearly blamed himself. He did not see through the warhound's true intentions in invading Song State. When the warhound's army entered Song State, it looked like they were heading for Song State's main city and they deliberately revealed their intentions to attack the farms, but this was all a cover. The true goal was to drag the northern cavalry into a quagmire, making them temporarily useless and allowing the Fang King to personally lead the army into Southern Xia. This was not the calm martial ruler's fault. Southern Xia's intelligence was clearly lagging behind. They did not know that the Warhound's plains had been unified and they did not know that there was a spirit beast kingdom supporting the Warhound's kingdom. The new Fang King was an experienced general and had a deep understanding of the Southern Xia army. In this situation where the intelligence was not equal, the calm martial ruler could not do anything. After all, he was not a prophet. The previous king has given his orders. Gu Qianqiu respectfully said, "We ask the calm martial ruler, Dongfang Gan, to inherit the Southern Summer King's throne." The surrounding soldiers all knelt down. Whether it was prestige, fame, or background, the calm martial ruler was worthy of this position. Now that Southern Xia was on the verge of collapse, they needed a leader to give orders. Who would have thought that the calm martial ruler would coldly say, "How can a general be the Southern Summer King? This ruler will not accept the throne, Dongfang Haoran inheriting it is the proper way." If it was anyone else saying this, people would think it was fake, but the calm martial ruler's character was known by the entire country. He was like another Dongfang Zhan, although he had a high status, he had no interest in material comforts. When the previous Southern Summer King was choosing between the two princes, he preferred the decisive Dongfang Gan. Who would have thought that when Dongfang Gan learned that his royal father wanted to pass the throne to him, he would lead his troops to fight the warhounds without a single word. Dongfang Gan's actions were telling the previous king that his ambitions were on the battlefield and not in the palace. The previous king could only helplessly pass the throne to Dongfang Hao. Dongfang Hao had great ambitions and was not a virtuous king, but he was very tactful and shrewd. He was skilled in the heart of a king, so the governance of Southern Xia over the years was not bad. Now that Dongfang Hao was dead, was Dongfang Gan not willing to become the Southern Summer King? The great scholar said with a calm expression, "The prince is talented, but he is too young and lacks experience on the battlefield. Without any experience in governing, how can he take the throne? Southern Xia is in a special period now. I ask the calm martial ruler to not decline. We ask the king to immediately ascend the throne. We ask the king to immediately ascend the throne." Everyone began to loudly shout out. Dongfang Gan tightly knit his brows as he said, "If I become the king, who will fight? The Southern Summer King does not need a king, but rather a general that can sweep through the warhounds." The calm martial ruler's words are wrong. Meng Qinggu opened her mouth to say, "A national war is related to the fate of the country. With the king personally leading the army, it will raise the morale of the army. As long as we can pass this calamity, we won't need to worry about counterattacking in the future. Prince Dongfang Haoran is not even 30 years old and can already break through to the peak ninth awakened soul layer. It is better to let him grow with the country guarding ruler, becoming a country protecting pillar that is not inferior to the calm martial ruler in the future. On the other hand, if the prince ascends the throne early, not only will his strength not convince the people, it will also delay the prince's growth." How could the calm martial ruler bear this? The calm martial ruler ascends the throne to two benefits, but the calm martial ruler not ascending the throne is a mistake, so please reconsider. Gu Qianqiu praised Meng Qinggu. She really was worthy of being the beautiful and intelligent vice-chairman of Miracle Commerce. These kind of reasonable words were much more useful than these people. The calm martial ruler gave a sigh and finally agreed. Dongfang was escorted by the army and finally carried out a simple coronation ceremony in Central State. From now on, Central State City would be the imperial city. After Dongfang ascended the throne, he immediately issued several royal proclamations. First, Dongfang was given the title of calm martial ruler, inheriting the title left behind by the southern summer king Dongfang. Of course, it was only in name. Dongfang did not have much battle experience and his strength was not strong enough, so he could not control the army for southern summer. The military power was still in Dongfang's hands. Second, the country-guarding ruler Chu Tian was given the title of Marquis Xuanji, being a first-class marquis. He had the right to mobilize the armies of the 6 states and manage the 6 marquises. The marquises of each county had to be led by the country-guarding ruler. Third, Meng Qingguo killed the Hell Song tribe's vice-chief Malam and was given the title of Southern Summer Marquis. She was given the title of Cloud Dream Marquis, becoming the Marquis of Southern State. Out of these 3 royal proclamations, 2 of them were royal proclamations for Miracle Commerce. Chu Tian added a Southern Summer Marquis title on top of his sovereign title and it was a first-class marquis with real power. This was something that had never happened in Southern Summer's history. Other than Chu Tian, Meng Qingguo had also obtained a Southern Summer Marquis title, being given the Southern State Army that the Western Marquis had guarded. This was the first female marquis title in Southern Summer in several hundred years. Regarding this, no one had any objections. The 3 great clans could not recover from the imperial city and the other large clans had either escaped, died, or returned to the war hounds, so how could they care about this? Among the marquises of Southern Summer, other than the new Cloud Dream Marquis Meng Qingguo, the Greenwood Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and Shenfeng Ho were all people on Chu Tian's side. The great scholar Gu Qianqiu was also on Chu Tian's side. The new imperial city and central state were Chu Tian's territory. Therefore, from the marquis to the common people, no one objected to this and they were all very excited. Chu Tian being placed in an important position by Southern Xia was a very good thing for Southern Xia. After Dongfang announced the royal proclamations, he wanted to go to the Yun sect to find Chu Tian. In the end, before he could even move, news came from the Yun sect. Chu Tian had overworked himself these past few days, causing his old injuries to flare up. He could only rest in bed and could not continue working. This time, Miracle Commerce and Southern Xia were all in a panic. They had finally waited for the calm martial ruler to inherit the throne. In the end, something had happened to Chu Tian, so what should they do? In the hearts of the central state people, Chu Tian's position was not inferior to the calm martial rulers. As long as Chu Tian was here, nothing was impossible, but once Chu Tian fell, wouldn't everyone lose confidence? What should they do? Find a medicine, they had to find a medicine. Meng Qingguo decided to use all of Miracle Commerce's channels and buy an immortal herb at any cost. In just a short night, the news of Miracle Commerce buying an immortal herb to save Chu Tian spread throughout the kingdom. However, once the news was released, it disappeared without a trace. Chapter 339. When time turned back 10 days, before Imperial City had fallen. The elf Aubersen left Imperial City and rode his dragon hawk beast south. He passed through Central State, Qing State, and Southern State before arriving in an endless primitive forest. An entire tens of thousands of miles was covered in forest, as if it had not been developed since ancient times. There were large amounts of unimaginably terrifying vicious beasts living here, with level 3 demon beasts being common. Whether it was the southern summer country or the warhounds country, this was a wild area that could not be developed. Aubersen recklessly charged into the territory of these vicious beasts, but he ignored the warning and hostile roars coming from all around him. None of the vicious beasts dared to attack him. These vicious beasts did not have high intelligence, but they could tell who was strong and who was weak. Even if he didn't count the unfathomable Aubersen, the dragon hawk he was riding was a powerful third-level demon beast. Its wings were 10 meters long and its body was covered in red dragon scales. It had the claws and head of an eagle, and the sharp aura it released was enough to deter most vicious beasts. When Aubersen passed through the endless mountains, traces of civilization began to appear. He arrived in the sky above an emerald forest. Although this was also a forest, there was a clear difference compared to other areas. The forest's colors were bright and beautiful, and it was full of vitality. Every tree gave people the feeling that they weren't just plants, but living creatures. The entire forest covered an area of over 100 miles. Towering trees that were over 100 meters tall could be found everywhere. Each tree was comparable to a skyscraper in the human world. The holes in the trees had been transformed into wooden windows, and exquisite treehouses were hung outside. It's Elder Aubersen. Elder Aubersen is back. The dragon hawk flying through the forest attracted the attention of a few elves, but when the elves saw the person on the dragon hawk, they immediately let down their guard. They put down the bows in their hands and began to cheer. These elves were hidden in the forest, almost merging with the forest. If they did not show themselves, it was almost impossible to detect them. Aubersen jumped down and fell down from 200 meters in the air, but he was like a light leaf as he passed through the branches of the trees. He grabbed a vine and gently swung down, falling onto a carpet of grass. Elder Aubersen, you're finally back. Is everything all right in the tribe recently? Have the ogres in the north stopped? How are the lizard men in the south? Has the hot-tempered mountain giant woken up? Don't worry, everything is normal. Silhouettes jumped out from the surrounding trees one after another. They were as gentle and beautiful as butterflies, and in a short while, they covered his entire body. The elves were different from humans. There was a huge difference in the appearance and size of humans. The fat ones could be as fat as a ball, the skinny ones could be as thin as a bamboo pole, the beautiful ones could be devastatingly beautiful, and the ugly ones could be comparable to the devil. There were no elves who were too fat, too skinny, or too ugly. Almost every female elf would be a top-notch beauty among humans. It was precisely because of this that the elves became one of the races that produced the most beautiful and handsome men on the continent. Aubersen was a very popular person in the tribe because of Aubersen's special status. The elves were a very closed-off race and most elves were not allowed to participate in worldly affairs, so the elves were very closed off to the outside world. Aubersen's duty was to wander around and collect information about the surrounding countries. Every time he went out, he would be gone for a year or two, and every time he came back, he would bring back interesting news and customs from different countries. Because of this, the young men and women of the elves liked to pester him. Aubersen gave a very friendly greeting, "Hello everyone. Hey, Uncle Aubersen." At this time, a clear and melodious voice rang out. To Aubersen, this voice was simply synonymous with the devil. He felt a headache coming on, but he had no choice but to look up with a smile. Isn't this little Princess Vivian? I haven't seen Vivian for a year and you've become even more beautiful." Aubersen had just looked up when he saw a pair of slender and beautiful legs. They were very white and slender, like they were carved from jade. It could be considered a perfect work of art, swinging back and forth on the swing. When did this girl come? Even with Aubersen's abilities, he didn't notice her at all, but Aubersen was already used to this. This was a very beautiful elf girl. She had the appearance of a 12 to 13-year-old human. She was wearing a dress made of tree leaves, and her dark green hair was adorned with an exquisite crown of flowers. Her small and exquisite face was extremely beautiful, and she looked like a fairy from the forest. Even in the elven race, this elven girl was a 1 in 10,000 great beauty. "Humph, I won't listen to you." Little Princess Vivian disappeared from the swing and instantly appeared on the ground. She was holding a bright red fruit in her hand, and with a kacha sound, she took a bite and juice splashed everywhere. Her sparkling eyes stared at Aubersen and she vaguely said, "Where is my present? you wouldn't have forgotten, right? Auberson quickly wiped his sweat. Of course I wouldn't forget little Princess Vivian's arrangements. I believe you will like it this time. Don't lie to me. You also said the same thing last time, and the thing you brought back was some large warring kingdom's national treasure, a treasure left behind by an ancient divine race. In the end, I didn't like it at all. This time I passed by a small human country and found a very interesting thing. Although the value isn't high, you will definitely be satisfied. The little Princess Jade-like eyes lit up. She didn't want anything valuable, it was enough as long as it was interesting and fun. Auberson took out the video disc player. What kind of thing is this? Isn't it just a mirror? It's called a video disc player, a thing that can store sound and images. It is very interesting, I'll teach you how to use it. There are also many other things, magnetic sound machines, canned food, light bulbs, and etc. There will always be something you will like. Little Princess Vivian was a bit interested. Then I'll take it back and try it out. The little princess lifted the video disc player with one hand and put the other things into her storage ring. When Auberson let out a sigh of relief, the little princess suddenly turned around and glared at him. If it isn't as magical as you say, or if it isn't fun at all, I'll go to your garden and pull out all the flowers and plants. Auberson's body trembled. How could he do that? Those were his lifeblood. The little princess did not give Auberson a chance to speak. Her figure swayed and she disappeared on the spot. Auberson opened his mouth, but he didn't have time to say anything. He could only pray that the magical things the small southern summer country found would be enough to satisfy this little princess. The little princess' innate talent was very special, even Auberson could not catch up to her. In just a few breaths of time, the little princess had already returned to her treehouse. Everyone, quickly come and see. The little princess brought back something fun again. When the little princess returned to her treehouse, she immediately attracted a large group of elves. These elves were all younger than the little princess, and there were several that looked like 4 or 5-year-old human children. They were currently biting their fingers as they innocently looked at her. Big sister princess, what is this? Why haven't I seen it before? The little princess had a very proud appearance. She stood in the middle of the countless little elves like a high king of children. This thing was brought back from the human world. This princess has never seen it before, so of course you haven't seen it before. Then how do we play with it? Here, don't be anxious. Let me slowly study it. What is this? It smells so good. A 6-year-old elf took out a can. Is this edible? Greedy ghost, you only know how to eat. The little princess said. Auberson said that this is a can of human food and it tastes pretty good. Since we brought back quite a bit, we can all share it. The little princess had a very straightforward personality, which was why the children liked to play with her. In just a while, the several hundred cans Auberson brought back were divided among the children. Pa! The little princess opened a can and immediately smelled an even stronger fragrance. This made the little princess feel very surprised. Could it be that humans could also cook demon beast meat? She had always thought that only the elves on the continent could cook demon beast meat. Delicious, too delicious. These elven children all ate with relish. Although the elves could cook demon beast meat, the elves usually ate vegetarian food and weren't very good at cooking meat. When they ate the food made by Miracle Commerce using source energy and human recipes, each of the elves was filled with praise. Was it really that delicious? The little princess opened a can of violent bear meat. The meat was delicious, it was chewy, and the bones were chewy. This was truly a special delicacy. The little princess even drank all the soup and she suddenly felt a bit regretful. This kind of delicious thing, she shouldn't have told the others about it. But because of her face, she couldn't take it back. Little princess, how do you use this video disc player? Let me try. Vivian used the method Auberson taught her to turn on the video disc player and several dozen pairs of clear eyes stared at it. They saw the reflective surface of the mirror suddenly light up and images began to appear. Ah! These timid elves were all startled, and they all ran away in a puff of smoke. What is happening? Why can other worlds be seen in this mirror? My God, could this be the legendary planar mirror? That is an ancient era's divine weapon. The little princess was also very surprised at first. She had never encountered this kind of situation before. However, the little princess could feel that the energy fluctuations from this item were very weak, so it couldn't be a divine weapon. So she raised her hand and said, "Don't panic, this thing isn't dangerous." Everyone was skeptical, but they couldn't resist their curiosity. Several dozen little heads slowly gathered over, and when they saw the image being played, they all had a shocked expression on their faces. It was like they didn't dare believe what they were seeing at all. Exclamations and screams filled the air. Wow! There's a picture. It's moving inside. It's like it's connected to another world. What kind of technique is this? Some elves couldn't help touching it with their hands, but it was like touching a smooth and cold mirror. It was like a transparent glass was separating them from the other world. You're blocking me. Little Princess Vivian could not understand all of this. She loudly shouted, "Don't be noisy, don't be noisy. There's sound inside and I can't hear it anymore. If you don't listen to me, I won't show it to you." The elven children immediately became obedient. Everyone's eyes opened wide as they stared at the monster in front of them in a daze. Chapter 340. Although these elves looked like children, in fact, according to human age, their average age could reach 40 to 50 years old. Although the mental development of the elves was relatively slow, and their cultivation speed and efficiency were not comparable to that of humans, after such a long time, no matter how slow their growth was, they were still much stronger than they looked. The weakest of these elves was in the awakened soul realm, with 7-8 being in the late awakened soul realm. There was also a true spirit realm expert other than little Princess Vivian. Just a group of children already had this kind of terrifying strength. It could be imagined just how strong the elves were. However, no matter how strong they were still children. Therefore, they were very curious about this strange thing they had never seen before. The narration slowly sounded out. Although the human language and elven language were two completely different languages, the human language was not hard to learn. Humans were one of the most important races on the continent, so the human language was something every elf had to learn since they were young. Therefore, it was not a problem for them to understand it. This illusory image stone was not a real movie, so the scenes were exaggerated. So, when the people fought, the scenes were like heaven-shattering and the elves' eyes were glued to it. Too great. Satisfying, it was very satisfying. This was simply a feast for the eyes and imagination. The entire treehouse was silent. Each little elf found that other than the intense fighting scenes, the most attractive part was the story itself. The elves were a race of intelligent beings that were 10 times more sensitive than humans. Therefore, when they watched this movie, they were 10 times more immersed than humans. The main character met the princess. That faintly discernible love that people couldn't grasp made the hearts of these inexperienced elves itch. That handsome and brave male lead Chu Tian and that beautiful and kind princess Meng Yingying, both of them had pure hearts and noble characters, making the elves instantly fall in love with them. "I'm so angry." An 11 or 12-year-old elven girl angrily said, "Why is this Chu Tian so cowardly? Since he likes her, he should pursue her." "That's right. Can't he see that Princess Meng Yingying also likes him? That blockhead. Idiot. What do you know?" The little princess waved her hand and said in an old-fashioned manner, "Human nations value status very much. This warrior named Chu Tian is just a wandering swordsman, while that Meng Yingying is a noble princess. Do you think that in the human kingdom, ordinary people can casually walk together with princesses?" All the elves looked pensive. What? Humans were just so annoying. Why did they value these superficial things so much? It was difficult for the elves to understand the secular concepts of humans. These ordinary elves playing with the little princess didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. In the elven race, even if the elven king ate with the lowest elves, no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. The little princess is right. Another elf began to show off her knowledge. Think about it. If an ogre wanted to win over our little princess, do you think the great elder would agree? Bah! Vivian was so angry that her face turned red. How can such a handsome, upright, and brave person like Chu Tian be compared to an ogre? How shameful! Aren't they the same in the eyes of humans? Unreasonable humans. When these elves were quarreling, the development of the plot increased suspense. The kingdom's general secretly leaked this matter and distorted the truth. The king was immediately enraged and prepared to put the princess under house arrest. He also wanted to capture the human warriors and execute them. Damn it! The human king was too evil. How was Chu Tian not worthy of the princess? Why did he stop them? The elves were filled with righteous indignation. They were filled with cold sweat for the fate of the two of them. Who would have thought that at this time, the princess would receive the news and escape in the middle of the night? A series of thrilling and exciting escape scenes made people break out in a cold sweat. This was too exciting. There was no doubt that the male and female leads were intelligent. In the end, when the two of them were about to meet in the village, an unexpected event occurred. The Scarlet Blood religion appeared and captured the kind princess. The remnants of the Scarlet Blood religion were wildly slaughtering innocent humans, using evil techniques to collect blood essence. When they saw this incomparably tragic murder, each elf's face turned red with anger and their bodies trembled with anger. It was as if those people who died were real, living people. How could there be such evil people in this world? What should they do? What would happen to the fate of the male and female leads? The entire plot had only gone through a small part of it, but the pace continued to increase and the story became more and more exciting. There were all kinds of suspense and foreshadowing that finally exploded in the decisive battle. Ah! No! Don't die! When they saw the main character, Chu Tian, finally sink into the bottomless swamp to save the princess, each elf shed tears of grief. Could it be that after putting in so much effort, it would still end in a tragedy? Just when the elves were feeling very sad about this, a miraculous turn of events happened. The final ending of the story was that everyone thought that the warrior and the princess were dead, while the warrior and the princess hid their identities and lived in seclusion in a place where no one would disturb them, living a quiet and peaceful life. Good, good, good. The elves clapped their hands until they were rotten. The final conclusion was just too much to their liking. The little princess was also smiling through her tears. This was more like it. Good people should have good karma. This gift was just too great. She loved this story to death. Does the human race really have a person called Chu Tian? If he really exists, I have to see him. That's right, he is my idol. The elves began to chatter. If the human race really had a person called Chu Tian, they had to see him no matter what. Princess Vivian, tomorrow is my 100th birthday. An elf that didn't seem much older than the little princess looked at the video disc player. I really like this, can you give it to me? Another elf called out, doesn't the princess want my mount? How about I exchange it for this video disc player? Princess, not exchanging. Not exchanging. Not exchanging. The little princess angrily opened her eyes and reached out her arms to block the video disc player. It was like her sacred sovereignty had been invaded. This video disc player is this princess' most precious gift. Without my permission, if anyone dares to touch it, I will beat them until their head is full of bruises. Stingy. I'm stingy, I'm stingy. Let's ignore her and ask Elder Obersen for it. The elves looked at the video disc player with faces filled with longing and envy. If someone was willing to take out another one, they were willing to take out all their treasures to exchange. But since Elder Obersen could bring back one, why couldn't he bring back a second or third? The little princess also thought that since there was a story, why wasn't there a second or third story? Aubersen's treehouse was quickly invaded by these children. When he saw the little elves charging at him, Aubersen trembled in fear. How could they do this? Aubersen quickly explained that there was only one of these things. There was nothing else, there really wasn't anything else. Aubersen's persuasion was useless and he finally promised, "This human country is not far from us. When I have time in the future, I will definitely bring back gifts for you all." The elves were not satisfied with this, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Elder Aubersen couldn't make something out of nothing. Little Princess Vivian was the only one in the entire elven tribe that had a video disc player. This news quickly spread and the little elves returned home to tell their elders. Immediately, there were some adult elves that came to ask little Princess Vivian to borrow the video disc player. Vivian was very angry. This thing was her most precious treasure. How could she casually lend it out? The more people couldn't see it, the more curious they became. The Oldman tribe is willing to trade a month's worth of Moonlight Well water for little Princess Vivian's video disc player. The Green Leaf tribe is willing to trade a branch of the Tree of Life for little Princess Vivian's video disc player. Little Princess Vivian used to be the symbol of mischief and trouble. Almost no one liked to provoke her. In the past few days, little Princess Vivian had become completely popular. The treasure in her hands was not only coveted by her own people, but even some of the surrounding tribes had come to negotiate with her. "I won't trade. I said I won't trade. Even if you take out a dragon egg, this princess won't trade." Princess Vivian angrily made a move and actually chased away a group of people that came to negotiate. Finally she locked herself in the treehouse and refused to see anyone. The elven tribe was instantly thrown into chaos. This was because the people that were chased away by Princess Vivian had gone back to complain. These tribes immediately sent out messages saying that the elves were provoking their allies and breaking the contract. If they didn't give a reasonable explanation, they would complain to the Elven Council. How would they compensate them? Of course they would take out the video disc player. Good things should be shared with the forest. This matter alarmed the Great Elder, and in the end, Vivian had no choice but to hand over her beloved video disc player under pressure. Because of this matter, she cried all night, as if her most beloved toy had been snatched away by someone else. Night gradually fell. Little Princess Vivian had a bitter look on her face as she stayed in the treehouse. In just a few short days, she felt the deep malice of this world. Now that the video disc player had been borrowed, she didn't know when those people would return it. Elder Aubersen was not willing to reveal the origin of the video disc player because the elves were a peace-loving race. Elder Aubersen was afraid that once the origin was revealed, that place would no longer be peaceful. But Aubersen had miscalculated. Did he think that no one would know if he didn't say it? Little Princess Vivian had a magnetic sound machine in her hands as well as several dozen discs bought from humans in southern Xia. These discs were bought by Elder Aubersen at a high price in southern Xia and he didn't even know what was recorded on them. Vivian had learned her lesson. She hid these things and secretly enjoyed them every night. There were stories, music, teaching, and all kinds of lectures. In short, the content was very rich. What made little Princess Vivian the most pleasantly surprised was that she learned that these things came from a small human kingdom in the north. What made little Princess Vivian even more excited was that the Chu Tian in the movies really existed. These cameras, the magnetic sound machine, the video disc player, and everything else, they were all invented by him. Little Princess Vivian's feelings towards Chu Tian instantly rose from admiration and love to worship. Chapter 341. At dusk, the Emerald Forest was shrouded in a peaceful twilight. The elves had a long lifespan, and the pace of their lives was slow and leisurely. Almost no one was diligent in cultivation. Everyone liked to play with flowers and plants, study carving, music, or other arts. At this time, an elderly elf holding 2 books passed by the princess treehouse and asked 2 elf patrolling guards, "Why didn't I see little Princess Vivian?" She's usually very active. I saw her a few minutes ago, but she went back to the treehouse. This girl's toy was borrowed by someone, and she's probably angry now. But according to her usual habits, she'll be fine in 2 days. Don't touch her now, or you'll be in trouble. We know. The elderly elf looked up at the treehouse, shook his head, and left. Actually, the entire tribe did not know that Vivian had already quietly slipped away. She took advantage of when no one was paying attention and used her innate spatial energy to secretly leave the tribe. In a short period of time, she passed through the forest and trekked through several dangerous areas to the north, finally arriving at the border of the southern summer country's southern state region. Is this the human country in front? At this time, it was already dark. Vivian stood on her tiptoes at the top of the mountain and looked far ahead. She could vaguely see the lights of the southern border post built by Southern Xia. This made the little princess feel nervous. From the elders in the tribe, she learned some information about humans. Humans were a very complicated life. Whether it was appearance or character, the distribution was extremely uneven. There were beautiful women like Princess Meng Yingying in the movie, and ugly monsters like the Scarlet Moon sect leader. There were righteous and selfless warriors like Chu Tian in the movie, and there were treacherous and vicious bad guys. In short, good, evil, ugly, and beauty had never been so vividly reflected in a race. This was something that could not be seen in other races. Therefore, humans were the most complicated race, and it was precisely because of this that their movie was so popular. Although there were many good people among the human race, the elves generally believed that humans were greedy and treacherous. Therefore, the elves didn't have a very good impression of humans. This was also the reason why the elves were determined to break off relations with the human race and never come into contact with them. Little Princess Vivian had heard and seen for a long time, so she was naturally a little nervous and afraid of humans. It was said that some vicious and audacious human bandits would even attack elven tribes and abduct beautiful elven maidens just to satisfy the human noble's sexual desires. Just the thought of it was terrifying. If it weren't for Chu Tian's presence, Vivian wouldn't even want to interact with humans. What the little princess did not know was that Southern Xia was just a small kingdom. Even if the peak experts, the 3 rulers of Southern Summer, worked together, they still wouldn't have the qualifications to exchange blows with her. With her extremely rare spatial innate talent, how many people on the continent could catch her? The little princess did not dare to continue forward. She found a rock covered in moss on the cliff and sat down. She took out the magnetic sound machine from her chest and carefully adjusted it. She muttered to herself, "I don't know if I can receive a signal here. No matter, I'll give it a try." Z, Z, Z. Z, 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 Z. The magnetic sound machine continued to release random noises. The little princess slightly knit her brows. Was the distance still too far? When the little princess was a little depressed, the magnetic sound machine suddenly responded. She heard a light and cheerful music that came from the magnetic sound machine. Ayaya, I can really hear it. The little princess excitedly jumped up. She immediately switched channels and found that there were quite a few channels that she could receive. Chu Tian really is the #1 genius of the continent, actually inventing this kind of great thing. This is too great. Vivian was so excited that she wanted to shout out. The little princess began to look for the content she liked on Miracle Broadcasting. The source of Miracle Broadcasting's signal was clearly from Central State. The station was broadcasting a lot of news and information about Central State. Vivian had never been to the human world before, so even the most boring information was a very new experience for her. So the humans made a large theater that could hold several hundred and over 1,000 people. It would be great if our tribe had this kind of theater. Those fellows wouldn't have stolen my video disc player. Wah! Powerful. Powerful. Chu Tian invented something called a communication device. Even if they are separated by tens of thousands of miles, he really is worthy of being the person this princess admires. If the elven tribes had this kind of thing, the elven council wouldn't need to be this troublesome in the future. Little Princess Vivian was like a curious explorer. She sat alone on the pitch-black peak, immersed in searching. The information sent from the human world was like a whole new world for the little princess who had never left the forest before. It completely changed little Princess Vivian's view of the world. She had never seen the world as clearly as she did today. The sky gradually brightened. She had to quickly go back. Little Princess Vivian carefully put the magnetic recording machine in her pocket and jumped off the cliff, instantly disappearing into the air. Ever since she experienced this different night, Vivian couldn't stop. Every night she would spend a lot of effort to secretly go to the borders of southern Xia and listen to the news from southern Xia. The elves were very open in all aspects, but they forbade their clansmen from contacting the outside world, especially with humans. If Vivian was discovered, the consequences would not be a joke. This violated the highest ban of the elves and it would even be reported to the Elven Council. But Vivian couldn't care about this. She couldn't resist the temptation of that mysterious world. Princess Vivian came here that night. When she was about to choose the content she liked to listen to, there was suddenly a program about the growth of the founder of Miracle Commerce, Chu Tian. There were large amounts of views and comments from the Heavens Alliance members. This Heavens Alliance was an organization formed by the admirers of Chu Tian in southern Xia, so it naturally attracted the interest of the little princess. Chu Tian's experiences are so legendary. The little princess found out that Chu Tian was an abandoned son of the Chu family in Central State City. His parents had been killed and he had been reduced to a slave. He had coincidentally met Meng Yingying, and that was how he managed to create such a large business. Life is always more legendary than stories. The little princess listened with great interest. Especially the series of things that Chu Tian did afterwards, it made the little princess prostrate herself in admiration towards him. The little princess could be said to be the most rebellious of the wood elves, so Chu Tian's untamed and unyielding nature was especially to the little princess' liking. Not to mention that he was so talented. Powerful. He really was worthy of being the person who invented movies and the magnetic sound machine. After paying attention for several days, the little princess understood more and more about Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce. She knew who the high-level members of Miracle Commerce were and what they had done. She knew almost everything. She also deeply understood the charm of Miracle Commerce. This kind of happy and tense time always passed very quickly. The sun was about to rise again. The little princess reluctantly put away the magnetic sound machine and was about to return to the tribe to come back tomorrow. At this time, a small advertisement from Miracle Commerce caught the little princess' attention. Are you troubled by your mediocre job? Are you troubled by a life that lacks passion? Are you confused by the monotonous repetition of your days? Miracle Commerce's guest group, the Chu sect, is recruiting talents. No matter how humble your background is, no matter how high your status is, no matter how strong your cultivation is, no matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, as long as you have a skill, you have the chance to become a member of Miracle Commerce. Let us witness a great miracle together and create a great miracle empire together. At this moment, Vivian's heart began to beat faster. The elves had a very long lifespan, living for at least 500 to 600 years. If their cultivation was a bit higher, living for 1,000 years was not a problem. The elves had a long lifespan, so they could accumulate a large amount of knowledge. But Vivian could not understand, why would one of the most intelligent races on the continent like to live in seclusion? If the elves were like Chu Tian and used their knowledge and wisdom to benefit the world, wouldn't that be a better choice? If they could go to the continent and achieve something that people would envy, then their existence in this world would not be in vain. Vivian gave a soft sigh. But it was a pity that the elves were very strict and the elders would not allow the elves to participate in worldly battles. Vivian did not expect to convince those old fogies. If this idea was discovered by the elders, she would be put under house arrest for 8 to 10 years. Vivian turned off the magnetic sound machine and returned to the tribe with a worried expression. For the first time, she began to doubt the iron law that the elves had followed for generations. The next day, when Vivian was prepared to continue listening to the program, the content of the radio station had completely changed. It was almost all about the situation in the north, saying that the northern part of southern Xia had been invaded by spirit beasts and even the kingdom's capital had been defeated. Brutal spirit beasts. This was truly hateful. There were many spirit beasts living in the chaotic forest, and none of these spirit beasts were good things, they were basically bandits. She never thought that even southern Xia would be bullied by spirit beasts. The little princess was worried that Chu Tian would be in danger in southern Xia. In the next few days, the little princess had been paying attention to the situation through the radio. On this night, the Miracle Broadcasting Station released a large amount of urgent purchasing information. Miracle Commerce's chairman Chu Tian has been heavily injured fighting spirit beasts on the front lines. He needs a level 2 immortal herb that can restore his innate vitality. What? Chu Tian was heavily injured. Vivian was instantly filled with worry. What should she do? She returned to the treehouse to think about it for the entire night. Chu Tian's current situation was very difficult and he needed help. This favor, she, Princess Vivian, could help him. If she brought the medicine to him, he would be very grateful, and Princess Vivian could use this chance to get to know Chu Tian. Only if she did this, the risk was very, very large. She couldn't care about that right now. Little Princess Vivian was not a dutiful elf. After she made up her mind, she immediately began to move. Chapter 342. Level 2 immortal herbs were very precious, but there were a few that met the standard in the tribe. However, they were all held in the hands of the elven elders like treasures. Vivian did not have the ability or reason to trick them, so she could only steal them. This kind of medicine was provided by the tribe every day and consumed large amounts of resources each year. Actually, the elven elders did not need it at all, since which elven elder didn't have a cultivation in the true spirit realm or above? Instead of wasting a heavenly treasure, it was better to use it for a higher value. But which elder's medicine was better to steal? The elven elders were not easy to provoke. The third elder Aubersen had the best relationship with her, and there was an immortal herb in Aubersen's garden, so he deserved to be unlucky this time. In the middle of the night, Vivian left the tree house and secretly entered Elder Aubersen's herb garden. The defenses of this herb garden were very tight. The outermost layer was an illusion array, making people unable to see the situation of the herb garden at all. There was a firm barrier inside the illusion array that even a true spirit expert would find hard to break, followed by several layers of alarms and defensive traps. There were mechanical puppets patrolling the inside of the herb garden, and each herb had a restriction placed around it. With this kind of complete defense, the chances of being stolen was close to zero. Even if someone tried to break into the herb garden, it was impossible not to set off the alarms. Once they set off, Aubersen would notice. However, this was not a problem for little Princess Vivian. She was someone blessed with the spatial attribute, so those outer defenses were nothing to the little princess. Puchi. Space was cut open like a piece of cloth. The little princess directly entered Elder Aubersen's herb garden. The entire herb garden was covered in a treasure, with a total of several dozen herbs, but each one was a very rare treasure. Vivian found the immortal herb that Aubersen had transplanted from a ruin 80 years ago, the longevity grass. Longevity grass, its name seemed to be very ordinary, but it was a genuine immortal medicine. It said that this herb had a strong innate vitality that could make up for any innate defects and loss, increasing one's lifespan by 5%. The strong spirit energy contained within was enough for an awakened soul realm cultivator to easily break through their bottleneck. Very good. It's you. The little princess held a dagger out of thin air and very nimbly bypassed the restriction. From the spatial level, the entire plant was perfectly cut out, not even leaving behind a single root. However, the soil where the immortal medicine was planted did not show any signs of being turned over. The entire medicine was not pulled out, but moved away on a spatial level. Only Vivian could do this in the entire forest, so the restriction Auberson left behind would not be touched. Elder Auberson, you can't blame me. Royal father always says to plant good karma, so I took your medicine to save Chu Tian, that is also planting good karma. He had obtained the celestial medicine. Vivian fled the tribe that very night. This was because the little princess knew that the matter of stealing the medicine couldn't be hidden for long. If Auberson found out that his precious immortal herb that he had carefully cultivated for 80 years had been stolen, he would go crazy with rage. She had to send the medicine to Chu Tian as soon as possible to avoid any future worries. The little princess passed through the forest and gathered her courage to enter the southern Xia for the first time, finally arriving in Central State. It was already dawn at this time, and even if the little princess had innate spatial energy, rushing through the night like this was still very tiring for her. Where does Chu Tian live? The southern Xia was in a state of war, so Central State did not have its usual bustling scene. Adding in the fact that it was only 4 in the morning, most people closed their doors and did not come out, so Central State City was very quiet. This was the little princess' first time coming to a human city. The stone houses humans lived in were very strange, being densely built. There were not many trees in the city, which made her feel a bit unaccustomed. Was it comfortable to live in this kind of dense and tall stone house? There were no leaves, no grass, no gardens, no wells, no treehouses, and no birds to accompany them. Several hundred people squeezed together, just thinking about it made her feel awkward. Humans were truly strange. Where did Chu Tian live? Vivian closed her eyes and immediately lit the mind lamp. Her divine sense was very strong, instantly sweeping over half the city. What surprised the little princess was that these humans were very weak, simply too weak. How could there be such a weak country in this world? Vivian did not have any concept of power levels on the continent. She did not know that small kingdoms were the lowest level powers. The southern Xia humans were this weak, no wonder they were bullied by the spirit beast kingdom. The little princess was filled with confidence after knowing the strength of the southern Xia people. This was because in Central State City, there was no one that could threaten her, so she was assured of finding the strongest person and heading in his direction. Chu Tian's position in the southern Xia was very high, so it was not wrong to go find this strongest person. The Southern Summer King's temporary manor. Dongfang Gan was currently taking care of military matters, and while Dongfang Gan was concentrating on analyzing the situation. Hey, hello. Suddenly, a weak and sweet female voice sounded in his ears. Dongfang Gan was shocked as he found a petite figure standing 2-3 meters away from him. Dongfang Gan's expression fell as he threw the pen in his hand like a dart. No matter who it was, if a person silently appeared in the middle of the night, they would have reacted the same way as Dongfang Gan. Dongfang Gan's cultivation was in the second true spirit layer and was the person with the highest cultivation in the southern Xia. The other side was standing 3 meters away from him, but he could not feel any aura at all. What did this mean? Either she was a high-level assassin, or she was an expert with a high cultivation. Or perhaps it was both. In any case, to be able to suddenly appear in front of Dongfang Gan without alerting the guards outside, she definitely was not an ordinary person. The little princess didn't care at all. She stretched out 2 fingers and casually caught the pen that Dongfang Gan had thrown out. Dongfang Gan gave a low roar and his spirit energy instantly exploded. The Dongfang family's source spirit turned into a spear that pierced at the little princess with incomparable strength. What are you doing? You're hitting people. Vivian raised her hand, and the space in front of her shattered. The spear pierced into the shattered space and came out from behind Dongfang Gan. In the end, the attack landed solidly on Dongfang Gan's body. Dongfang Gan was instantly injured by his own attack. Who are you? I'm here to deliver medicine to Chu Tian. Vivian held a wooden box in her hand and spoke in human language that she was not very familiar with. Do you know where Chu Tian is? Deliver medicine. When Dongfang Gan saw Vivian open the wooden box, a dense aura immediately filled the air, instantly enveloping the entire room. Dongfang Gan's injuries were covered by this aura, and in an instant, they improved a little. This medicine is. The door was suddenly pushed open and several dozen Dongfang family guards rushed in, shouting, "Catch the assassin!" "Stop!" Dongfang Gan immediately stopped them. "If this fellow wanted him, these people would not be able to stop her. This is not the time. Go and find the people from the Miracle Commerce." Meng Yingying was tossing and turning in bed. With the recent series of events, she had not been able to sleep for several days. Now that Chu Tian was sick, Meng Yingying was very panicked. She did not know if Chu Tian could hold on or not. It said that the Warhound's army had been robbing merchant ships recently. They clearly wanted to borrow ships to head south. If there was no Chu Tian, could they stop the fierce Warhounds? At this time, this news reached Meng Yingying's hands. It said that an outsider had come to deliver medicine to Central State. Meng Yingying pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Only then did she jump up in surprise. She immediately put on a few pieces of clothing and rushed to Dongfang Gan's residence like fire. She saw that her elder sister had already arrived. At this very moment, Meng Qingwu's face was also filled with excitement, so much so that her body was slightly trembling. Both of her hands were holding a plain and simple small wooden box. Even the usually calm and steady elder sister could be this happy, then the small wooden box definitely contained the immortal medicine. "Ah! Aren't you Princess Meng Yingying?" Meng Yingying found a girl who looked 1 or 2 years younger than her. She had dark green hair and a bright flower wreath on her head. Her clothes were woven from green leaves and her snow-white feet were bare. She looked very beautiful with long and sharp ears. She was sitting on a stool with a teacup in her hand and her jade-like eyes were curiously looking at the humans around her. When this strange foreign race person saw Meng Yingying, her eyes immediately lit up. Her snow-white feet stepped on the ground and she ran to Meng Yingying's side with a look of pleasant surprise. She carefully looked over Meng Yingying. "You're even more beautiful than in the movies. Me and my sisters all like you. I never thought that I would be able to see you in person. This is truly great." Meng Yingying felt a little embarrassed and a little confused. Who was this person? "Yingying, this is the princess of the Wood Elf clan, Vivian." Meng Qingwu walked over and said to her sister, she was the one who brought the immortal medicine to Chu Tian. "She is the great benefactor of our miracle commerce." "Elf princess?" Meng Yingying was shocked. This was a real princess and she, Yingying, was just an imposter. Meng Yingying did not dare to be negligent and quickly said, "Big sister princess, oh no, I should call you Granny Princess. I am Meng Yingying. Thank you for saving Chu Tian." The little princess's little face immediately fell and she indignantly said, "What granny? How do I look like a granny?" The little princess was a little unhappy. Dongfang Gan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. This little elf looked harmless, but her cultivation was unfathomable. If he accidentally angered her, the consequences would be unimaginable. Meng Yingying scratched her head and quickly apologized, I'm sorry. The lifespan of elves is different from that of humans. I don't know what to call you." The elves had a much longer lifespan than humans. The little princess looked like she was 13 or 14 years old, but her actual age was definitely 60 or 70 years old. Meng Yingying had just turned 16, so was it wrong to call her granny? It seemed like whether it was humans or elves, they did not like to be called old. Forget it. The little princess did not take it to heart and impatiently said, "Why isn't Chu Tian here yet? I want to see him. Chu Tian's injuries are acting up and he's currently recuperating." Meng Qingwu also could not wait. "We'll send the medicine to him now." Chapter 343. Meng Qingwu had imagined Chu Tian's injuries to be very serious. Actually, these injuries were a bit more troublesome than before, but it was impossible for Chu Tian to deal with them. He had been resting in bed for the past few days, but he was actually taking this chance to relax. The Yun sect's research had made enough progress, so Chu Tian didn't need to personally take care of everything. it was fine to have his subordinates take care of it. As for Meng Qingguo and Miracle Commerce searching the world for immortal herbs for Chu Tian didn't care. How could a small southern summer country find an immortal herb? Immortal herbs weren't cabbages. Level 2 immortal herbs were even rarer than level 3 immortal herbs in a sense because immortal herbs were created by the heaven and earth, so they could brew a large amount of essence. Most immortal herbs far surpassed level 2 immortal herbs, so low-level immortal herbs were hard to find. Moreover, even if they found a level 2 immortal herb, did Miracle Commerce have something of equal value to exchange for it? Miracle Commerce's current resources were mostly from southern Xia. They weren't high-level, high-quality, or rare, and the money they used was the gold coins of southern Xia. These gold coins were worthless in other countries, and although they had a bit of source stones in reserve, it was far from enough to buy an immortal herb. This kind of purchase was a waste of effort no matter how he looked at it. Who would have thought that when Chu Tian had this thought, a little elven princess would come out of nowhere with an immortal herb? She traveled tens of thousands of miles to Central State and didn't ask for anything in return, giving it to Chu Tian for free. Fuck, where did this wastrel come from? How precious was an immortal herb? It was equivalent to over 100 top-grade sacred herbs. Chu Tian had a look of disbelief on his face as he looked at the elf who had given him the medicine. This was a short elf that was only 1.40 meters tall. She was wearing clothes woven from branches and leaves and wore a crown of flowers on her head. She was barefooted, and although her body was not fully developed, her face was breathtakingly beautiful. This person's aura was very strong, perhaps she was a peak expert. However, his face was full of curiosity and innocence, as if he was inexperienced. According to the tradition of the elves, young elves were not allowed to come into contact with the outside world. She must have snuck out. Wow! When the little princess saw Chu Tian, her snow-white cheeks flushed with excitement. Stars appeared in her eyes, and she was a little nervous and reserved. I didn't think that I would really be able to see you. I'm Vivian. Although I'm not human, I've used the things you guys invented, so I admire you very much. So when I heard that you were injured, I specially brought you a herb from the tribe. Take a look and see if this herb is useful to you. It turned out that the reason and motive of the little princess sending the medicine made everyone not know whether to laugh or cry. They had never thought that the influence of Miracle Commerce would seep into the elven race. What was even more unexpected was that the little princess had actually been nurtured within the elven race. Longevity grass. Chu Tian opened the medicine box to take a look and revealed a surprised expression. Longevity grass was a rare herb recorded in ancient books. Chu Tian had never seen it in the future. This was a precious medicine that could increase one's lifespan. Meng Yingying asked nervously, "Is it useful?" Longevity grass contains the essence of life. Even if a normal person uses it, their lifespan will increase according to the ratio of their lifespan. It is not a problem to repair innate life injuries. This herb's characteristics were very special. Even if Chu Tian ate it raw on the spot, he could still recover from all his injuries. However, Chu Tian wouldn't waste it like that. In addition, he found some problems with this herb, but there are traces of restrictions on this herb. If I'm not wrong, you secretly brought it out from the tribe. Chu Tian wasn't baseless. Even if the elves were very closed off, they wouldn't send medicine from far away for an outsider they had never met. This act of sending medicine was most likely the personal actions of this little elf. She didn't look old, probably less than 70 years old. Judging from the traces on this herb had been transplanted once, but it hadn't been moved for 80 years. Therefore, Chu Tian didn't even need to think to make a judgment. This must be the property of the elven tribe, or the property of a high-ranking member of the elven tribe. Anyway, it wouldn't be the personal item of this little elf. It was most likely stolen. Everyone began to worry. The elves were mostly very powerful. If the little princess stole an immortal herb and gave it to Chu Tian, wouldn't this anger the elves? The elves were originally xenophobic and didn't like to come into contact with humans. Now that the little elf not only violated the rules of the tribe, but also stole an important herb of the tribe, if the elves came to find trouble in anger, then perhaps Miracle Commerce wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Powerful, truly powerful. Truly worthy of being Chu Tian, being able to see the truth with a single glance. Little Princess Vivian did not hide anything as she giggled and said, "Our tribe doesn't have many immortal herbs and I don't have any in my hands, so I could only secretly dig one out. But you can be assured, the elves won't find trouble with you for this little matter. At most they'll put me under house arrest for 8-10 years." The little princess never thought that she had done anything wrong. This immortal herb didn't have much use to the elven elders, it was at most a treasure of Aubersen's. Rather than being kept by Aubersen every day, it was better to take it out and use it for something more meaningful. This chance would make Chu Tian owe the elves a favor, perhaps it would be very useful in the future. House arrest for 8-10 years. This punishment was too severe. Little Princess Vivian was willing to accept this kind of punishment in order to help Miracle Commerce. This made the Meng Qinggu sisters feel a bit bad. "Don't look at me like that, 8-10 years is nothing to the elves. Not to mention house arrest doesn't have any effect on me." Little Princess Vivian immediately added, "It's because our tribe doesn't have a way to lock me up right now. The herb has already been stolen and it's too late to send it back, so you don't need to worry." Meng Yingying was moved as she said, "We really don't know how to thank you. Why are humans so troublesome?" Vivian was a bit unhappy. "Isn't it just a herb, what's the big deal?" Since the little princess had said this, if he continued to push it, he would seem like an old woman. Chu Tian impolitely took the immortal herb and wrote a list for Meng Qinggu. He told Meng Qinggu to collect these materials as soon as possible. These materials were all common sacred herbs. With Miracle Commerce's current resources, it shouldn't be hard to find them. Meng Qinggu took the list and left. Chu Tian looked at Vivian and said, "Can you let me see your source spirit?" "Of course, there's no problem." Vivian's spirit energy was released. When her spirit energy was released, it didn't have any color and one could only see ripples in space. Following that, a white dagger appeared above Vivian's head. This dagger was very special. It seemed to be connected to space, and it contained powerful spatial energy. Every time it moved, its sharp edge would be able to cut through space like tofu. Spatial dagger. Little Princess Vivian's source spirit. A rare spatial attributed source spirit. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said, "Although you have a strong spatial source spirit, what's strange is that you don't seem to cultivate a spatial attributed cultivation technique." Vivian said with a depressed expression, "Because spatial attributed cultivation techniques are too rare, the elves can't find one suitable for me, so my main cultivation technique isn't spatial attributed." Everyone felt it was a pity hearing this. The spatial attributed was one of the strongest attributes. If she could find a suitable cultivation technique to complement her source spirit, little Princess Vivian's potential would be very shocking. However, because the spatial attributed was rare and strong, there were very few people who could cultivate it, so it was hard to pass it down. The little princess not being able to find a suitable cultivation technique was normal. This is truly great. Chu Tian revealed a laugh that made everyone suspicious. Chu Tian explained, "You didn't come all the way here to give me the medicine, so Miracle Commerce can't repay you. I'll use a special cultivation technique to return the favor." Little Princess Vivian was shocked. It couldn't be. Could it be that Chu Tian had a spatial attributed cultivation technique? This cultivation technique is called void escaping. It is a movement technique based on space. Your source spirit's spatial dagger matches the requirements of this cultivation technique. As long as you can cultivate this cultivation technique, there will be few people in the same realm that can threaten your life. Everyone's faces fell. Not only were these people shocked that Chu Tian could take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique, they were also shocked at the strong effects of this cultivation technique. Once this void escaping was cultivated, no matter how much his battle strength increased, at least within a large realm, it would be hard for anyone to kill him. This was definitely an extremely strong cultivation technique. Vivian found it a bit hard to believe. This person could really take out a spatial attributed cultivation technique? Chu Tian did not say anything else as he took out a jade slip and spent the entire night recording the cultivation technique. He personally gave it to Vivian and seriously said, "After you memorize this cultivation technique, destroy it. You can't leak it out, otherwise it will bring trouble." Vivian had only wanted to give him the medicine. She never thought that she would have this kind of fortuitous encounter. Vivian had thought that in her lifetime, it would be hard for her to cultivate a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique. When Vivian saw the main points of the void-escaping cultivation technique, she felt her blood boil. This was not just a complete spatial attributed cultivation technique, it was also a high-class cultivation technique. To Vivian and the elves, this cultivation technique's value was not just a single immortal herb. Not even 10 or 100 could compare. At this time, Meng Qinggu came back. The materials that Chu Tian needed were already in the storage, so the conditions were met. Now he could directly refine the medicine. Good. The heavens are helping me. This troublesome old injury can finally be cleaned up. Chu Tian said to Vivian, "Stay in Central State for 2 days. If there's anything you don't understand, write it down and I'll explain it to you when I come out." After saying this, Chu Tian went into closed-door cultivation. Chapter 344. The true value of the longevity grass was not the immortal herb itself, but rather its special property of increasing one's lifespan. The herbs and pills on the continent were strictly limited. For example, a level 1 herb was only effective for body refinement cultivators. If it was used on an awakened soul cultivator, the effect would be limited no matter how high it was. If it was used on a true spirit cultivator, it would have no effect at all. Therefore, a normal level 2 immortal herb could become a precious collection, but it was not very useful to the elven elders. The longevity grass was special in that not only did it have the medicinal properties of a level 2 immortal herb, it could also increase one's innate vitality. It was not useless to the elven elders, after all, it was equal to several dozen years of lifespan. Vivian's carelessness in stealing the longevity grass would cause quite a stir, but Chu Tian did not have any thoughts of returning it. With Chu Tian's current strength, it was easier said than done to get an immortal herb. Since it was delivered to his door, how could he let it go? He would first swallow the fat meat that was delivered to his mouth, he would not consider anything else in the future. But an entire immortal herb was too much. Chu Tian used a third of it to refine a pill. In terms of quality, it was only a half immortal grade pill. Whether it was the longevity grass itself or the supplementary herbs, they were all sacred medicines that contained a large amount of life essence. Therefore, this pill was mainly used for healing, which was more than enough for Chu Tian's injuries. I can finally get rid of this sickly state. When Chu Tian swallowed the immortal pill, it was activated by his spirit energy and turned into a large amount of essence. It quickly seeped out of his internal organs, entering his muscles, and entering his bone marrow. A vigorous life energy covered his body, healing his broken meridians without any suspense. Not only did Chu Tian's injuries instantly turn for the better, his cultivation also quickly jumped from the 6th awakened soul layer to the peak 6th awakened soul layer. Although this pill was made with a healing formula, it still contained immortal herbs and many other sacred herbs. The condensed spiritual energy was something a trivial illustrious soul realm cultivator could not imagine. Chu Tian had not only reached the peak 6th awakened soul layer, he could feel that he had only absorbed a fifth of the medicinal essence. Even if he used the remaining energy, it would be enough for him to break through the peak 6th awakened soul layer and jump into the 7th awakened soul layer, the true soul realm. Good, very good. Who would have thought that a third of a stock of immortal medicine would have such an effect? Not only had Chu Tian recovered from his injuries, but he had also obtained a huge increase in strength. Today, Meng Yingying invited the little princess to the Miracle Hotel to eat and drink to her heart's content. Meng Qinggu felt that after several days of contact, the little Princess Vivian should have let down her guard, so she personally came to the hotel to find the two of them. She saw these two fellows making an entire table of food and wine, drinking and chatting happily. The little princess was dancing on the large table with her bare white feet. When Meng Yingying saw her elder sister appear, she was very surprised. "Elder sister, why are you suddenly free? Come and sit. I just happened to pass by and heard that you were here, so I came to take a look." Meng Qinggu was here to test the little princess, so she couldn't make it too obvious. "Honorable Princess Vivian, are you satisfied with Central State?" Vivian's face turned red. "I like it here." Meng Qinggu said with a smile, "Since you like it here, why don't you stay in Central State for a long time?" Little Princess Vivian was like a deflated ball as she said with a depressed face, "That won't do, the elves aren't allowed to privately interact with humans. I've already left home for 2 days and the elders have most likely found out, so they are searching the forest for me. If they can't find me in the forest, they might come here. I can't implicate you all." Meng Yingying was very angry. The elves are all a group of old fogies. It's not like every human is a bad person. Princess Vivian has been in Central State for a few days, but we still don't know where you came from. Can you introduce your hometown to us? This was the question Meng Qinggu wanted to know the most. She already knew that Vivian came from the south, but the kingdom lacked information on the southern region of southern Xia. They only knew that there were barbarians, dwarves, and other rare races living in the endless forest. That's right. Meng Yingying slapped the table. "After you tell us, I'll ask Chu Tian to build a communication station there. That way, even if you're in the tribe, you can still receive information from Central State and even contact us." Vivian was clearly tempted. If Miracle Commerce could build a communication station in the Emerald Forest, wouldn't that bring a rich life to the elves? It would make the tribe that had been closed off for thousands of years suddenly become full of vitality. When Vivian missed Yingying and Chu Tian, she could use the communication device to contact the two of them. Is this really okay? For Miracle Commerce, this is just a small matter. Vivian did not have any wariness towards the Meng Qinggu sisters at all. When she heard the Meng Qinggu sisters say this, there was nothing else other than gratitude in her heart. She immediately told them the area the tribe was in, the surrounding terrain, the specific location, and even the strength of the population. The area Vivian lived in was to the south of southern Xia. It was a chaotic land that spanned hundreds of thousands of miles. Because the forest occupied 70 to 80% of the area, this place was called the Forest of Chaos. The terrain was chaotic, the species were chaotic, the races were chaotic, the influences were chaotic, and the order was chaotic. In short, it was a chaotic land. There were countless spirit veins intersecting in this area and the land was very fertile. There were countless treasures and there were countless blessed lands. In short, it had the conditions to become a large empire. However, there were hundreds of races in this area. There were large races like the spirit beasts and elves, there were strong races like the dragons and the giants' tears, and there were rare races like the dwarves, the flower fairies, and the tree spirits. These races all had their own rules and kept each other in check, with no one being able to stand out. The west side of the Forest of Chaos was close to the sea, which was the border of the Sea Race Empire. The southeast side was occupied by the Empire, where many superpowers intersected, so this made the situation even more complicated. The current Forest of Chaos main system was a city-state system. Large underground cities and forest cities were scattered all over the place like a chessboard. Every city occupied thousands of miles of rich resources, representing the hegemony of a region, and was fought over by the various tribes of the forest. Some large cities even had several vassal cities, forming a colossus that was not weaker than the forces of the warring states. A place without a country. Meng Yingying felt this was very strange. There are clearly over 10 billion people, but there are no countries. It is rare to see races all concentrated in the same area on the continent. The different races have different habits and beliefs, so naturally it is hard to unify them. Meng Qinggu never thought that there would be this kind of area south of southern Xia. Then what are the strongest powers in the Forest of Chaos? Vivian said, other than us elves, there are several other strong powers in the Forest of Chaos. For example, the Dragon City controlled by the Dragon Lord, the Titan City controlled by the Giants, the Wild Beast City controlled by the Spirit Beasts, the West Sea City controlled by the Western Sea Race, and etc. They are all powers that cannot be underestimated and can be considered the overlords of the Forest of Chaos. Vivian drew a simple map of the area. Meng Qinggu had been very troubled recently. Miracle Commerce's development to the north had been blocked, so how should they expand? Now, a new world had appeared in front of them. This complicated and rich place, this primitive and barbaric land, perhaps it would become Miracle Commerce's new direction. As a merchant, Meng Qinggu was very clear that the places with business opportunities were not places with order. The more chaotic a place was, the more opportunities there were to rise. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.